would like to call the official City Council meeting to order. Today is Monday, November 16th. If we could all stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to make this meeting official, we need to establish a quorum. I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Pezza.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Bram.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. We have an official quorum. I am going to move item 4, which is the recognition for Timothy Christian, the state title, which they just won in soccer for the boys, up to item 2 in the agenda so that we could open up our room. We have 2 public forums tonight, so our room's a little crowded. So I'm going to go ahead and take liberty of moving that item up. So I'm going to actually meet the head coach from Timothy Christian, maybe the principal down at the podium over here. Am I right? And actually, why don't we just bring the whole team up? Come on up, guys. First in state. Right out in front with the trophy. I just like to say, as the mayor of Elmhurst, it's really neat to see. We have 3 great high schools in this town, and to see one of our private schools, Timothy Christian, I believe, bring home their first state title. Is that true? For men's sports in the history of their school. It's not only a privilege and honor for us as Elmhurst residents to have your school in our town, but what an accomplishment to bring home a state title in boys soccer. So I can't say enough about what these young men, the hard work that they put in to bring this home, but it's an honor and a privilege. We've got IC with the state champion football team. We've got the York Dukes with the cross-country team, and now we got Timothy Christian with boys soccer. So God bless you guys. I have a proclamation I'd like to read to the coach, if you'd like to step over here real quick. All right. Whereas the Timothy Christian Boys High School soccer team has demonstrated its ability, courage, and team effort under tough competitive conditions, and whereas the Trojans stand for excellence in IHSA Class 1 competition, with Timothy Christian winning its first state title in their program history, and whereas Timothy Christian High School has demonstrated that boys soccer program is outstanding by ending their season with a 15-12 record and a 7-game winning streak with half of the wins during their playoffs. Whereas the Trojans won regional quarters, regional semis, regional title, sectional semis, sectional title, state semis, and the state championship title. And whereas these young men represent the finest quality of youth in the city of Elmhurst. Now therefore I, Peter DeCiani III, Mayor of the City of Elmhurst, do hereby proclaim November 16, 2009 as Timothy Christian High School Boys Soccer Day in the honor of Timothy Christian soccer team capturing their first IHSA Class 1A state title. How about a round of applause for these young men? Yeah, right there. I'm going to have your coach, Coach Gesh over here, say a few words about the young men here, and then I invite all of you to come up to the council at the dais here and shake all the aldermen's hands and our city manager, our city attorney, because it's a celebration tonight, and we're so proud of you guys. So here's the coach.
Wow. Okay. I just want to thank you for the honor, and Timothy Christian High School Boys Soccer Day will have to make that an annual event, hopefully. Just very proud of our team, obviously. Being a private school, we obviously draw students from other communities as well. Timothy's been in Elmhurst now since the 60s, and we're just a proud resident of the city, and we're obviously very proud of our soccer team this year as well. So formal congrats again from me as your head coach, and it's nice to have it from the city of Elmhurst too. So thank you.
Hey, why don't you guys come on up here and I'll walk you up. You can shake hands with everybody.
In the front.
Right through here.
Yeah.
Right in front. Perfect.
They're well known.
Congratulations. Job? Best part of the job. Good job. Congratulations.
Nice job. Congratulations. Nice job.
Congratulations.
Nice job.
Job. Nice job.
Nice job.
Congratulations. Job.
Who's the goalie? He gets a double high five. He gets a double high five. Congrats. Congratulations. Congrats. Nice job. Nice job. Congratulations.
All right.
Good job.
Nice job, bud. Congrats, man.
I'll give it a little shake. Great job.
Congratulations. Nice job, coach. I don't know which one the goalie is, but he needs an extra high five. You don't win unless you have a good goalie. There you go. Excellent.
Congratulations.
Dude,
Did you really?
Who was it? Who's the dog? A little bit.
The guy in the back, that guy right there.
Definitely paper.
Well, I'm already done.
They're a little slow in getting started.
Of course.
All righty, there are two public hearings scheduled for this evening. I hereby call the public hearing regarding Special Service Area Number 14 to order. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Do I do that?
Or do we?
It's okay. You can.
I'm not prepared to do that. Okay. Gutenkopf.
Here.
Pezza.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. The purpose of this public hearing is to take public comment concerning the proposed establishment of a special service area for the property commonly known as Spring Road Business District, and more fully described in the City of Elmhurst Ordinance Number 0-41-209. Special service area is being established for the purpose of providing special city services to the area, specifically the construction and installation of new sidewalks. I would ask the clerk read any written comments concerning this matter into record.
I have none.
Okay. All right. Would any members of the public like to make any comments for the public record? If you could please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is John DeVries. I'm property owner at 526, 528 Spring Road. I've kind of been the point person for the Spring Road Business District and the formation of this SSA 14. And property owners have met multiple times. And as the surveys have indicated, there really is a strong support for this formation to provide for the improvements along Spring Road. Just on behalf of the property owners and the proposed SSA, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the City Council for their support of this project. We are very excited on Spring Road about the project and really appreciate the chance to partner with the city and help bring about this facelift on Spring Road. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. DeVries. Anyone else that would like to? There you go. Mr. Algram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Scott Algram. I'm the owner of the Algram Funeral Home located at 567 South Spring Road. My family and I have been at that location for over 50 years. In fact, my grandfather and grandmother, my parents, and now my wife Charity and myself have all lived at that location as well as worked at that location. I'd like to thank Tom Borchert and Mike Hughes and especially Kim McGrew for all of their help, especially as they've attended a number of our Spring Road Business Association meetings and help keep us very informed, always very accurately and very clearly on what was going on with this project. Anybody who's been on Spring Road recently can see that this project is definitely needed, and I think it will be a great improvement to this very vital business area. I think also that I'm very glad to be able to partner with the city on this important project, and although I do acknowledge that I know my taxes will go up because of this project, I feel that it is a very worthwhile investment, and I mean that very strongly, that I feel it's an investment. I don't view this as an expense to my business, but an investment in our community, and therefore I'm very much in favor of this SSA, and I thank you for being able to comment on it.
Thanks, Mr. Algrim. Anyone else for public comment on the SSA for Spring Road? Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none, I would ask if there is a motion to adjourn from the public hearing. Alderman Brown, Alderman Pezza, and I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. The hearing is adjourned. The next public hearing is the second public hearing scheduled for this evening. The second public hearing concerns the city's proposed 2009 tax levy. I call the public hearing regarding the 2009 tax levy to order. I'd ask Clerk Spencer again to call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Pezza.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. I would ask that the clerk read any written comments concerning this matter into record.
I have none.
Okay. Would any members of the public like to make any comments for the record? This woman here on the aisle?
I will speak loud enough, I think. This is really short, it's only 8 sentences, but I've lived here for 19 years, and every year my taxes have gone up.
Ma'am, can you please state your name and your address real quick?
Oh, yes, Barbara Hurahan, 140 Elmhurst Terrace.
Oh, and you know what? If it would be possible, because we record these meetings, if you wouldn't mind stepping over by the microphone over there, that would really be helpful for us so we can make sure we get it on the record. This is a public hearing, so we have a court reporter present. We want to make sure we've got everything proper, so I appreciate
Sure.
your willingness to do that. Thank
It's
you.
better than me yelling anyway, I guess. Okay, I've lived here for 19 years, and the taxes have gone up every year. I work in the private sector, not the public sector, and most of our defined benefit pensions have been ended, and that just means a little lump sum. When the private sector can't make ends meet, they cut expenses, and as we can see, they cut jobs too. Federal, states, and cities don't cut expenses, they don't rein in benefits for their workers, they just raise taxes. Our houses are quickly becoming liabilities, tax liabilities, that some of us can't afford. I think that I speak for many citizens in Elmhurst who couldn't be here tonight because they might still be at work or at their second job. Please don't raise taxes on any of us. Run this city like a business. Lower expenses or cut worker benefits.
Thank you for the comment. I would ask if the public could refrain from clapping and from making noises at a public hearing. We need to handle this public forum with proper decorum. So I would ask that after each person has spoke, because we're going to hear comments on both sides of this, that would be respectful to both sides, and we save our applause. That's not for a public hearing, but I just want to make it clear. All righty? Anybody else that would like to speak? This gentleman over here on the left? There we go.
My name is Tom Cruz. I live in Elmhurst. I've lived here for 25 years. I'm going to comment basically the same thing as this woman that just spoke. In the private sector, jobs are cut. And before there, I'm definitely opposed to the tax increase until all of the departments of the city are checked, and if there's some layoffs that have to be done to balance the budget, I'm for that. I do not want the taxes to go up. It's not just the taxes here. It's our property taxes, and a lot of our homes, the values have gone down. And to increase the property taxes for this, I think it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The woman in the back there with her hand up on the end. Can you please be sure to state your name and your address just for the public record? Being that this is a hearing, we have to make sure we keep everything official. Thank you.
Helen Larson, 531 North Myrtle, resident of your average $400,000 home, moved in 1973. I know other people have more facts and they will speak much better than I do, but I did want to say that some people felt that attending tonight was a waste of time because everything's a done deal, it's all been decided, and there's nothing we can do about it. The task force, as soon as people heard this, they said, well, taxes are going up. That was the feeling. And I am sure that members of the task force are wonderful people. They work hard. They have children. They pet their dogs. But after looking at their bios, I doubt very much that any of them live in a $400,000 average house. And I'm wondering if maybe everybody involved in this on the other side knows exactly what's going on out there. Another point is that we are cleaning up a mess here. I understand that. It's not just a national mess, it's an Elmhurst mess that came about over more than a decade of crazy policies and blatant politics that has put this city in a hole. Now, we've had a handful of people on the council, some of which unfortunately are no longer with us, but I think we know who they are, the people who probably live in $400,000 homes or less, and who know what the real people of Elmhurst are feeling. And I give them kudos. I'm not going to name them because we all know who you are. Thank you. Maybe some other solutions to simply relying on the taxpayers to supply the fix would be to really go after retail. One way would be to, let's stop the banks, okay? I have heard people complain over and over again about the number of banks that have proliferated in this town in the last decade. And every place there's a bank, there's no retail. And that would be great. Spring Road, great. Any kind of retail. Hahn Street, not so much. The giveaways to the big developers were fought against by this handful of people on the city council, and they lost. I think that has to stop, and we have to be reasonable about development, and I think the retail incentives are a good idea. The other thing is a number of huge homes known as McMansions have been sitting around empty in this town for years, sometimes 2-3 years it takes to sell them. And most of them, some of them may be paying $2,000–3,000 a year in taxes. And while I've been told that it's up to the townships to assess these taxes, I know very well that working with the townships intergovernmentally, that Elmhurst could see that these homes are taxed as soon as they are completed. And we need those $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in taxes. I know we're going to have a tax increase, but I would like everybody else to understand what we on the side of the $400,000 home are feeling, and I'm sure everybody else will say it much better than I do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else for public? Ms. Moriarty?
Good evening. I'm Maura Moriarty. I reside at 404 Argyle. I'm here tonight because I'm appalled to hear that the city is recommending raising their portion of our property taxes 80% during these uncertain economic times. The city line, that is only one line item out of 20 other taxing bodies on our tax bill. 80% is outrageous to be doing this at this point in time. You don't have personal income, disposable personal income increasing at 80%. You don't have no guarantee when the economy is going to recover soon, and yet you are putting the burden on the residents here in Elmhurst. The city should really take a different approach. They should embrace this time as an opportunity to find new ways on how to operate the business. They need to go back to square one, create a whole new business model by which they provide city services. And secondly, it's a shame to hear the scare tactics that have been going around about them recommending the service cuts that directly impact the safety of our residents, particularly the children, i.e., for example, the crossing guards. I mean, we need to be more pragmatic when we approach the budget. We need to create innovative ideas on how city does business. I mean, it cannot be business as usual as it has been in the past. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Moriarty. Anyone else? The gentleman in the back there?
My name is Claude Bogach. I live at 566 West Gladys. I came to this town over 30 years ago. During this time, I have helped pay for a new police station, a new city hall, a new maintenance facility, a statue at City Hall. Paid legal fees for the use of eminent domain to gain parking spaces and paying the owners for the property. Helped pay millions for land that no developer was willing to buy, and now losing money. A new library, a new fire station. All of these and many other wishes and dreams of city councils and mayors. During this time, new housing, condos were built with the promise that the tax they generated would relieve my tax burden. New businesses were brought into the town, again with the promise that my tax burden would be relieved, though half the sales taxes they received would be returned to them. All the above was done to better my life. Yet during this time, the following has taken place. I now pay to have my garbage picked up. I now pay a city utility tax. Sales taxes have been raised. Transfer taxes. Paying taxes, property taxes have increased. The past administrations were all bettering my life and planning for the future, so we will be prepared. Well, I have learned during this period of time that more the city betters my life, the less I have for the few things I believe I would like to do to better my personal life. The city once again finds that with all the new funding, they still have spent more than they have, even though the city manager has stated that he foresaw the income was not keeping up with the bettering of my life. This mayor and his council, I know, will not listen to these words. They, like all elected officials, believe that what they do is the right thing, that by being elected, they have been given insight that the common man lacks. In a previous meeting, one of your members asked, in the past, when we increased the tax burden, did the councils spend all that extra funding? The reply to the question left no doubt. The answer was in the affirmative. The members of this administration will be forgotten, as members of past administrations have been forgotten. But what they do, I and the rest now, residents now and in the future, will pay dearly for.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Gentleman in the back there.
My name is Bob Booth, 159 Highland, and I looked through your budget committee's recommendations. They did a fine job of cutting things with a scalpel, but you've got a $6 million problem here. You need to cut it with an axe. You guys made the problem, and you're expecting us to bail you out. So, go back to work.
Thank you, sir. Sandy?
My name is Sandra Dave. I live at 138 Maple. I have a copy of this for the city clerk and for the press. I'm a baby boomer who grew up here and has lived here most of my 59 years. I would like to state first that I do not hold the current mayor or recently elected alderpersons at all responsible for the fiscal fiasco the city finds itself in today. These problems did not occur overnight. To the other alderpersons, one of whom has served almost 20 years, and others who have served multiple terms, and the city manager who has been employed over 20 years, I say that you have not at all done your jobs well. You did not react to the economic situation soon enough or hard enough, as we all have been forced to do in our personal lives for several years, or have seen the companies who employ us do. You not only needed to cut services and staff this year, you needed to do it in 2008 and 2007 in a significant way. You have not held Mr. Borchert and his staff's feet to the fire, yet you expect the citizens of this city to bail you out in this crisis. I ask what happens next year and the year after that if you find things still spiraling downward. Another rate hike? More of the same? To add insult to injury, I learned today that our property assessments will not be going down, although we all know our property values have gone down by about 35% over the last 4 years. Protesting our assessments will be hard for the average citizen to do by a December 21st deadline, as the assessor's office will not even entertain 2009 appraisals. Only appraisals and comparable sales dated in 2006, 2007, and 2008. So, citizens of Elmhurst, you will suffer double injury in the form of taxes, one at the hand of your city and one at the hand of your township. And if other taxing bodies increase their tax rates, well, I think you get the picture. Alderpersons, if you vote for a tax increase tonight, I expect you to simultaneously make the tough decision to make major cuts to staff and services, and not just in public works, but your top city management as well as police and fire. You have to make the tough decisions that have not been made for years. Eliminating jobs and reducing salaries is the norm today, and the city of Elmhurst should be no exception. If there is to be a tax rate hike tonight, I say it is time to say no to Mr. Borchert and at least hurt your citizens less with the rate hike as recommended by the Citizens Task Force appointed by Mayor DeCiani. Or better yet, an amount even below that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Gentleman there standing with the yellow shirt there. There you go.
Good evening. Nick Alexander. I live at 586 South Hawthorne. As we lawyers are fond of saying, the document speaks for itself. I've read the task force finance report a couple of times. While I don't agree with all of the findings, I do agree with the comments on page 6, which deal with the Capital Improvement Projects Fund. This needs to be further examined, and I think this may be the source of this may be the solution to the entire problem. It's unfortunate that this aspect of the puzzle wasn't examined in more detail, but I believe that the money's there that might be shifted over to solve the problem. I urge the council to exercise its independent judgment to determine what capital projects can wait and what money can be moved to avoid additional taxes. Last meeting I was here, I find the proposal set forth for the rebate regarding property tax increases interesting, but it puzzles me how that money may be made up if those rebates go into effect. In other words, do taxes have to be raised higher to compensate for rebated amounts? What if everybody in Elmhurst decides to contest their tax assessment this year? Even a relatively small group who may prevail will cause the assessments to go down, and ultimately the property tax bill will go down. Where's that surplus money going to come from? What happens if the appeals are wildly successful? It's everyone's right to appeal, and our citizens have the responsibility to question the assessments, especially in light of the tax increase suggested. I've heard the term fiscal responsibility used in recent campaigns for offices here. This budget puts the promises to the test. I urge the members of the council to look at the expenditures and to cut whatever is surplus and make sacrifices necessary to show our residents that this can be done. I'm probably repeating myself. I've been a proponent for the suggestion that the aldermen and the mayor return their salaries to the general fund. I think this is a sacrifice that would lead the way. The task force makes good points on the expense reductions, but more can be found. The accounts payable in tonight's meeting. I reviewed the accounts payable online, although I don't have the supporting documents for it. There's a towing charge for $1,855. I don't know what the basis for this is. It seems like a lot of money for towing. I don't know if there's going to be reimbursement for this. There's also a charge for Nextel, or to Nextel, for approximately $5,200 for monthly cell phone charges. I don't know if this is necessary, but those are several $1,000s right there that if they come into contest may become tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds. As the phrase goes, pretty soon you're talking about some serious money. Solutions are obviously hard. Please consider the options and their consequences before raising taxes. I understand that Elmhurst has many obligations imposed by state legislature, and there are contractual obligations, but everybody's in this together. Before I leave, I would simply like to ask the audience, those of whom are not speaking, to raise their hands who are against raising taxes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment at this time? This gentleman here down in front.
Gilbert Fisher, 586 North Van Auken Street. For the last 6 years, my wife and I leave our house between 11 o'clock and midnight, and we go dumpster diving. That is, we drive around to different food stores. I jump in a dumpster and I look for food. We've been doing this for about 6 years. 80% of the food that my wife and I eat comes out of the garbage. Why? Taxes. I worked 37 and a half years for the Lombard Post Office. I paid 11% of my salary for my retirement, and after 12 years of being retired, Washington, D.C. cut my salary, my retirement benefits, by 48%. So we live in our house, and we go out 2 nights a week in all kinds of weather, the snow, the sleet, the rain, and we get food. So we don't have to spend money for food. My wife tells me if we get sick or hurt, the first thing that's sold is my car, because we won't have money for gasoline, insurance, or license plates. I hope to live long enough to see you people at the garbage at midnight looking for food like my wife and I have for 6 years, and we pay taxes on taxes on taxes. Wake up. The United States is being destroyed by you people right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public forum at this time? This woman here in the front.
Good evening. Patrice Gallagher, 467 Elm Avenue. It's my personal opinion that now is not the time to raise the Elmhurst portion of our property taxes. As was already said this evening, DuPage County taxes are already going up. And it will be very difficult to challenge the assessment this year. The model of property taxes is broken anyway. There are hundreds of foreclosures in Elmhurst. People facing foreclosure, in foreclosure, and have already been foreclosed upon. Many people are in hardship circumstances. Many people are not talking about it. I promise you, everyone in this room, your neighbors are facing a hardship or facing foreclosure and you don't know it. We all want to live in a nice community. Elmhurst is a nice place to live. But now is the time to really sincerely conserve our resources. Think about it, sincerely and heartfelt. I don't want to be standing here talking and having it fall on deaf ears. I'm really coming from my heart. I think everyone in this room is. And I think it's time to think outside the box. What do we really need? Can we go without certain things for a year or two and just gather our thoughts together to maybe create another way of doing things instead of always going to the property homeowner? We've all worked hard to buy our homes. If people can't afford their mortgages, how can they afford higher property taxes? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I ask you to kindly and sincerely go back to the table and consider redoing the numbers. We're a team here. We're like a family in Elmhurst. Let's just act that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Benson.
Todd Benson, 391 River Glen in Elmhurst, along with my wife and 2 children. We've been very happy Elmhurst residents for 15 years and look forward to living out our working life and retiring here in town. I understand that you have to participate, and we as community members have to pay our fair share. But tonight there have been a lot of poignant, cogent comments from our community members, many of which I don't hear the balance that I want to hear from my city. Yes, we may have to pay our fair share of increases, but I'd also like to hear our city find better ways to manage our city. The opening comments that a city has to be run like a business seems to make sense. Maybe there's a need for talking. In business, you hear how the owners are asking for early retirement out of some of the staff that they have. Well, I haven't heard enough ideas coming from our city to properly find out whether we've tested all the waters. Are there ways to keep employees, keep the manpower strength or woman power strength, but possibly lower the payroll? I see that happening at the school district. 2 years ago, I watched one of my sons graduate from Churchville, and I noted that evening that there were an awful lot of a lot of the teachers who had served 24, 26, 28 years were all retiring. And partly that is early retirement programs put out by the school district. Now, it's true, you lose some experience, but you also gain some energy from the other part, the new coming in to take their positions. The last comment that I'll ask is that you invited, Mr. Mayor, you invited, was it 20, 24 individuals to serve on a task force, and they came, they studied, and they gave some suggestions. One that irks me awfully hard here is that it seems like the city is going beyond what was even asked for by the task force, whether it was 2 cents a gallon for gasoline to turn into 5 cents a gallon for gasoline. I mean, it's already a difficult chore sometimes to pay more than you have to, but our neighboring communities, unless Oak Brook Terrace lowers or raises their taxes, it'll be awfully hard to pay 8, 9, 10 cents a gallon more to buy gasoline in Elmhurst. Ultimately, we as a community lose out over time. So all I ask is, yes, we have to pay more in taxes, but we also ask of our city to look at better ways to manage our community. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Benson. Anyone else for public? This gentleman here sitting down? There we go.
Good evening. My name's Tony Graham. I live at 254 Caroline. I've been an Elmhurst resident for over 55 years, and much of what's been said tonight, I can just forget about that now. But I thought about bringing an umbrella because it's raining. I really want to encourage all of the good people who serve our town to really re-examine. The proposed increases are just too drastic, and we all know there's no such thing as a temporary tax increase. I'm afraid that whatever happens here tonight will end up being repeated over and over again. The citizens of this town were not a bottomless pit. I want to encourage you to postpone, cut, do whatever you can to mitigate this increase. It's really starting to hurt. I don't see how some people do this. The town is not supposed to be an elite club where only those who can afford can stay. This was my hometown. I grew up here. I'd like to stay. When I retire, I don't know if that's going to be possible. Mr. Mayor, you spoke about how we need to step up and cover the cost of our community. Well, I've been stepping up for a long time now. Some of these things, I think, could be postponed without the sky falling. If it costs us 10% more to do something a couple years from now, I say $1 when you're broke is worth more than $1.10 or $1.20 when you're not broke. So if we have to dip into reserves and that hurts the bond rating, and we have to pay more in interest somewhere down the road, that might be something we should look at. Oh boy, I guess I'm going to say goodnight now. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Ms. Heslop in the back there?
My name is Darlene Heslop. Darlene Heslop, and I live at 200 North Michigan Avenue, number 227 in Elmhurst. I have in my hands 3 documents. The first 2 were part of a presentation made by Mr. Borchert on July the 6th, 2009. Both of these documents have exactly the same thing. We need to raise taxes, cut services, or some combination thereof in order to balance this next budget. The third document is the task force report from October the 5th, 2009. And I mean no disrespect to those that worked on the committee because I know most of them, but the conclusion was exactly the same. We need to raise taxes, cut services, or some combination of the two in order to balance this next budget. I mention this because over the 3 months that passed from the July presentation to the October presentation, little, if anything, was discussed regarding the inevitable recommendation for a very substantial tax increase, as well as possibilities for relief for those that may qualify due to income, lost wages, etc., etc. I want to know why there was such a long delay. And I would also like to know that whether you all acknowledge this or not, but the 14 of you are the ones that are the only financial task force that was elected by the citizens of this community. And the leader of this task force is Mayor Pete DeCiani. It was your responsibility and continues to be your responsibility since that presentation by Mr. Borchert in July to begin the process of reviewing the expenses and revenues of the city, not a group of hand-picked friends of the mayor's being led by his former campaign manager. The budget and tax increases belong to you, the 15 of you, and you are responsible for it and the discussions and anything surrounding it. And you have, for some reason, delayed the entire summer in order to address these issues, and now you are behind. And I would also like an answer to the following. What really, honestly, and truly is the increase? Because if the math is done, per the task force report, the recommendation was a 79.4% increase. The proposal of the council from the 1026 meeting was 88.6%, but a notice in the paper states that the increase is 67%. And also, I'd like to know what is the expected revenues for the 5 cents per gallon fuel tax, and can it indeed be proven that the majority of gasoline purchases in Elmhurst are by non-residents? There is no mention also of the attraction of any kind of additional investment, in particular retail, to offset the losses that we have experienced since late 2001 due to the lack of car sales. Will this ever be addressed? Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Heslop. Anyone else for public forum? Mr. Levin, my campaign manager.
Scott Levin, 393 Arlington. I was one of the co-chairmen of the task force, not his campaign manager, but actually his opponent. I here speaking mostly as a private citizen. I want everyone to know that if this task force report was not, whether you consider it hand-picked people or not, there were 24 people, most of whom put in long hours, went through the budget, and we didn't start with the idea that we were going to have a tax increase. In fact, I dare say that whatever size house you live in, the economy can hit you just as hurtfully as a big house or a little house. And we didn't start out with the idea that there would be a tax increase. We started out by saying, we can cut this budget, we can find the answer, but you need to read this report. It's online. You don't have to agree with the recommendations, but the situation is indisputable. Our operating budget is $50 million. If we're short $6 or $7 million, I don't care what the cell phone bill is. I don't care. You lay off a police officer. What are we talking, $100,000? The magnitude of the discrepancy is huge. Now, as a personal citizen, I don't want my taxes raised, but remember that by maintaining the revenues that we have in the city, we're protecting our property values. They've fallen everywhere in this state, greater in other parts of the state than here in Elmhurst. Cut deeper, lay it on the council. Tell them to cut deeper. This is me speaking, not the task force. But you're not going to escape a property tax increase and maintain your home values and the services. Now, if you read the report, me speaking personally, you'll see that 79% of the costs of our largest departments, police and fire, are personnel, and that's where we need some control. We have to make sure that when we go into our union negotiations that we're fair. The task force noted, and it's written in here, that in businesses like mine, we've cut people, we've laid them off, they're gone. We've cut salaries 5 to 10%. Some people in the task force said they had 20 and 25% decreases. And our union wages stay the same, they go up. Only 1.5% or 2%, at times when the cost of living is negative 2%. There are areas to cut, in my opinion. I'm speaking as a citizen, not as the task force. But I also think that before we start talking about what we can and can't do, get educated. I reached the conclusion, as everyone did on the task force, that we're in big trouble. If you read the report, you'll see that we're supposed to have operating reserves of 3 to 4 months. We don't have them. We're talking there's supposed to be $8 million in our savings account. I doubt if we even have $1 million left. Now the council, God bless you, because you got some hard work ahead of you. Do the right thing. Listen to what the people are saying about what hurts, but also protect the city for its own investment. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Levin. Anyone else? The gentleman in the back with his hand up. Here we go.
Jeff Sahagian, 466 Ridgeland and 421 Oak. I don't have time to read the report. I really don't care. I don't want my taxes to go up. It's ridiculous. I'm embarrassed. These people should be ashamed of yourselves.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Quigley?
Thank you. John Quigley, President and CEO, Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce and Industry, 113 Adele Place in downtown Elmhurst. Let me assure everybody the retail rescue is not out there, and it won't be out there for years to come. In fact, for the majority of the last decade, Retail has covered 25% of the city's budget, while property taxes have covered 7 to 8% of the city's budget. With the drop in the car dealerships, which accounted for 33 to 45% of each retail tax dollar generated in Elmhurst, with that drop, that's where you saw the big drop in the retail sales tax side. I believe in the current budget, by the drop in that sales tax is now probably around 18% of the budget, and property tax is up to 10% of the budget based on simply on that drop. There is no large retail outlet coming out here to rescue us. The only rescue would be if every Elmhurst resident starts purchasing everything they buy in Elmhurst. That would be the only way to see that growth in retail sales as it is now. I would love for that to happen, by the way. Please feel free to do that. Shop Elmhurst. But the reality is, as the city tax as a portion of a property tax bill has been 5% or less for quite some time. I've got businesses that are paying $200,000, $250,000 a year in property taxes. Believe me, they feel it. They understand it. They're paying for kids to go to school when they don't have kids in the school district. They're paying for the park district to offer programs when they don't have kids going to park district, and they're paying for the library to operate when they don't have kids going to the library. They understand your pain. Ultimately, though, you are going to need to decide a level of services. And this is at a point where you say, we're willing to do without the services, or we're willing to ask more for the services. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Quigley. Anyone else for public comment? Gentleman in the yellow, and then I'll go to the gentleman in the jacket in the back there.
My name's Ron Norgal. I live at 180 Arlington. Just a couple things. You guys have tough jobs. You really, really do. But I think a lot of people want to circle this word services, all right? And let's get it all on a page, maybe. This is a great task report. I read it. I think Mr. Levin might underestimate. A lot of people have read this, are sophisticated. But let's get it all on paper, what services we're talking about. We love the police. We love the fire department. We love the city. But let the average taxpayer, including me, all of us, what's going to be cut specifically? I know the report goes into these such things, but this is a democracy. You guys are here because the people put you in there. And I think most people do not want the increases. Cut the expenses. It's pretty simple. We love the restaurants, but I think we'll all still live here even without the restaurants. And finally, Mr. Borchard, I hate to single you out, but you've been raising your hand for taxes for the last 5 years. And you're the city manager. I assume you're supposed to represent us. Let's keep the expenses down. And we all know our homes are not worth what they are. Maybe you guys can propose that you work with the county to drop the assessments. I don't know about the politics of this, guys, but maybe you can work and then pose a tax increase to show that the cash decrease, increase taxes, but maybe on net, the cash going out of the wallets of the people will drop. Work with the people. The people put you in office. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back there with the jacket. There we go.
John Kirchner, 245 Villa, and I read the Finance Task Force report. It was really good until I got to the findings, and but I see how some taxes will have to be increased. I know it's a balancing act between services and taxes. What I'm thinking is that do we want to, it's a matter of cutting police and fire or the property tax increase. And I have an idea of possibly merging, this is a seed idea, merging the taxing body of the city government with the Parks Department. 3 reasons why I want to urge you to consider this. One, there might be some redundancies in costs between the two city government, two taxing bodies, so we could save some money that way. The other thing is it would give us more options. Rather than just have to make a cut in police and fire, maybe there's something in the parks area. I'm not talking about eliminating the budget for parks, but making some kind of cuts in parks, which might be more acceptable than making a cut in police or fire. And the third reason why I'm going to encourage you to take a look at this is if we do get a property tax increase, further down the road, one of these other taxing bodies can propose their own tax levy for the community. I'm thinking if we merge some tax bodies, this might lessen that chance or at least give some more control to the Elmhurst taxpayer. I'm just looking for some relief for the taxpayer. You know, you probably will be making an increase to some effect, but if you could just aggressively think or contemplate some ideas where long range some relief can come to the Elmhurst taxpayer. And one more thought is, I know one of the problems is there's pensions mandated by the State Assembly for police and fire. I would encourage maybe some kind of lobbying a lobbying group consisting of the mayors or their appointees throughout DuPage County and et cetera, lobbying the State Assembly for more control being relinquished to the municipal governments. So that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for the public forum here that would like to speak? Anybody? Oh, Mr. Johnson?
Good evening. My name is Willis Johnson, 150 North York. As a taxpayer for 28 years, I'm here to ask you to vote yes for a property tax increase. I don't like increases, but I like our community and appreciate the quality of life we have, and within reason want to see it maintained. Over the past year, we have seen lots of cuts. We also saw a sales tax increase. While they have helped, they have not solved our financial difficulties. The only really calculable solution is a real estate tax increase. We will still have one of the lowest rates in DuPage County. And I feel confident that as the economic picture improves and our reserves are built back up where they should be, where they need to be, you will be able to once again lower the tax rate. Please make the fiscally prudent decision for now and raise the real estate tax rate.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else for public forum? The woman in the back there with her hand up? There you go.
Selena Albu, 154 Willow. I wasn't prepared this evening, but I can't end on a yes vote to the council. With all due respect to our successful businessman in the city of Elmhurst, we love going downtown to the city of Elmhurst, and I do shop Elmhurst. But I think this council needs to cut services. And like was said before, scare tactics do not work. And also the task force, I do know a lot of people have read the task force, and we just cannot keep going back to the taxpayers to balance our budgets. Everybody in their house knows how to balance a checkbook. They know when there's a debit and a credit, and we need to find out where we can find money without just going to the taxpayers and saying more taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak at this time for anybody? This gentleman in the front.
My name is Jim Court, 255 West Avenue would be one address. I missed my favorite program tonight, Lie to Me. Then I thought maybe I'll come here and see what happens. You know what? I want to keep this town a sound town. I really do. I love Elmhurst. I think it's a great community. The only concern I have is I've written online and I've received very little response. Have we, and I'm asking, have we really taken a look at ways to increase efficiencies? There are many methods that I've suggested. I haven't gotten any response from any one of them. And I think that that's something that needs to be done to sell the position of taxes, because people will buy into it if they truly think that the city has stepped up and done everything in its power to do. I worked for the state and federal government for years, and I quit in disgust. State and federal governments always needed more money. They just always needed more money. They always justified increases. Sometimes they sound rational, but a lot of it was based on fears. And I think the people see what's going on in the country. They see how money's being spent and thrown at banks and bailouts and everything else. And the individuals are struggling. Not everybody. We got some pretty wealthy people in town, but there's a lot of people out there really, really, really struggle and can't afford. So all I'd ask the council to do is be fair, be diligent, and try to run it like you would your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Court. This gentleman here with his hand up.
My name is Dave Riva. I live at 268 Elm Park. And like some of you, I didn't expect to speak tonight, but after listening to the comments being made, I felt my due diligence as a citizen. Taxes are a necessary evil. We all know that. I am going to be 63 years old tomorrow. I say that because as a citizen who has lived in Downers Grove for about 45 years and in Elmhurst here for 8 years, I realize the same problems take place in both communities. It's exemplary that the city of Elmhurst has kept its tax base lower than the other communities, but I'm sure each one of those communities are going through the same problems. Now, for an individual like myself, I get a real estate tax bill that is essentially $350 more than what my house payment is. Sooner or later, I'm going to get to the point that it's going to be cheaper for me to rent than it is for me to own, because my tax rate is going to be so high. This is something that the City Council, whether it's here in Elmhurst, Downers Grove, or any other towns in DuPage County, is going to have to realize. The older generation, the bigger group of people in this community, the senior citizens, are suffering. And I'm speaking that from my experience. I've been unemployed for 8 months now. I cannot get a job. There's another individual, my next door neighbor, sitting in the room who has been out of work for 10 months. He can't get a job. We can't refinance our house. If we have an accident with our car, whatever the insurance company gives us for money is what we could go buy a car, because we do not have jobs. Our plight is that of many other people in Elmhurst. We are suffering. We would like you to look at your numbers. If it's a $6 million deficit, meet us halfway, $3 million. Do something. The reason I got up and talked just now was because every time I come home late at night and I come across the tracks and I look at that library, the money we spent in that library at 10:30 at night, and I wonder who's paying the bill for all those lights on in the library. Gentlemen, look at the ceiling. How many lights do you have on in this room? You want to save money? Turn off half of them, and you could still hold this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Almost caught everybody there. There we go. Anybody else for public comment at this time? All right. Seeing none, I would ask if there's a motion to adjourn from the public hearing at this time. Alderman Gutenkopf, Alderman Shea. Mr. Strino, can you do this by voice vote, or we need to do a roll call?
Voice vote is fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The public forum is officially adjourned. And we will now go on to item number 5, receipt of written communications and petitions from the public. At this time, if there are any written communications or petitions from the public, if you'd please approach the dais and present those to our clerk Spencer at the dais here. Anybody have petitions or anything written to introduce to our clerk? Okay. Seeing none, I will now go to the public forum section of this meeting, where anyone would have 3 minutes to speak. I see Ms. Jordan with her hand up. If you'd like to take the mic there, Kathy. And just officially say your name and your address, and then we will give you 3 minutes. This will be timed, unlike the official public hearing, which we let people speak as much as they would like. So, thank you.
My name is Kathy Jordan. I live at 556 Fairfield. I am the chairman of the Elmhurst Senior Citizens Commission. The Senior Citizens Commission in May 2008 voted and recommended to the City Council for passage of the transportation program Ride DuPage. On November 17, 2008, Ride DuPage was approved 14-0 by the Elmhurst City Council. The Senior Citizens Commission again has voted to recommend and advocate that you as a council move forward with the implementation of the program Ride DuPage for our community. Ride DuPage will provide seamless transportation for our seniors and people with disabilities. The state statute has North Avenue as the border for Addison and York Townships. This has been an ongoing problem for receiving transportation for both townships. Elmhurst should not be a community divided by North Avenue. We are and should be one Elmhurst. Ride DuPage will go to any location in DuPage County and will also go into Cook County to hospitals and for doctor's appointments. Ride DuPage will have no limitations and is user-friendly. Dependability and timeliness of pickup and delivery times are monitored very closely. Extensive training is provided for all drivers, and cleanliness of cabs is a priority. Sharing rides and handicapped accessible vans are also available. Transportation is an essential element to keeping older adults independent and actively connected to their communities. The lack of adequate transportation options has a significant impact on the ability of older adults to obtain essential services such as health, medical care, nutrition, social services, and employment opportunities. It also affects their ability to engage in life-enhancing recreational activities. Seniors need a reliable source of transportation. Ride DuPage will provide a quality transportation program for our community. We are asking that you help keep Elmhurst not only a desirable place to live and raise a family, but also a desirable place for people to retire in. We are depending on you to provide the leadership, forward thinking, and the initiative to do the right thing by following through on your commitment on November 17, 2008, and implement Ride DuPage for our community. Your support and commitment as a council is vital in helping seniors remain in their homes in a manner that promotes independence, health, safety, and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jordan. Anyone else at this time for public forum? Anybody? Last call? Okay. I will now close the section of our public forum and move on to item number 7, which is our consent agenda. At this time, I would ask if there is anyone that would like anything removed, has a question, possibly might want to vote no on. If there's anybody at this time that would like to pull anything from the consent agenda. City Attorney Storino.
I just, a few aldermen have asked, and I agree that item N should be removed from the consent agenda and probably just reheld or rescheduled at the first meeting in December.
Okay. So item N. Anybody else? Alderman Rose?
I'm going to say a lot, but I really would actually just want to talk about these as a whole. Item G, item H, item I, item M, and item Q.
G, H, I.
H, I, M, and Q.
M and Q. Okay. All righty. Alderman Pezza.
Yes, item R.
Item R is in Robert. Okay.
Point of order. Just a clarification on something here. I know the city attorney has to pull and hold item N. Do we have to do that as a council, or does the city attorney, can he do that? I'm just not sure. We've never done that before, so I need to have a clarification.
Defer to our legal expert.
Well, what I guess I'd ask the council to do is, as you go through G, H, I, M, N, Q, and R, just take N, and I would ask if you would consider tabling that to the first meeting in December,
December 7th?
December 7th.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to
So we
table
need
at
a
that
motion.
time.
Okay.
Yeah. Alderman Morley?
I'd like to pull item N from the
N is in
consent
Nancy?
agenda.
Okay. Very good. Anybody else? We're good? Okay. So at this time, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda, less items G, H, I, M, N, Q, and R. Alderman Gutenkopf, Alderman York, seconds. And I would ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. The motion to pass the consent agenda, less items G, H, I, M, N, Q, and R is approved. And now we'll go on to item G. And I ask Clerk Spencer to read the report, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the proposal from ERA to perform engineering services to design and oversee construction of the projects necessary to allow for certification of the Elmhurst levy in the amount of $167,040 be accepted, and that a resolution authorizing this contract be prepared. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, unsigned by Michael Bram, Vice Chairman, signed by Pat Shea, and signed by Chris Healy.
All righty. And I'd ask for a motion and a second to put this on the floor, please. Alderman Kennedy, Alderman Pezza seconds that motion, and go to Alderman Kennedy.
I'd like to defer to Alderman Rose, who brought up the question.
Thank you.
Rose?
I'm not sure exactly, I had to pull all these in, because I'm not sure exactly how to do it. They all have in them an issue that I just would like some clarification for. One, items G, H, and I are all reports. It's been our usual practice that the ordinance comes 2 weeks later. There's some wisdom in that. It's the first time that folks really have an opportunity to read the report. Members in the community may not have an understanding what's exactly in that report, and then 2 weeks later, the enabling legislation comes in the form of the ordinance. What we have here are 3 different reports, and in times past, we have suspended the rules in order to consider those if there's a time element. Clearly, item I, the Dan Gibbons Turkey Trot Parade permit request, there's a time element there. I can understand why we're going to do the ordinance. But not one of these reports says we recommend a suspension of the rules. All of them require that. And so my question is, are we changing our practice? If we are, I think we ought to discuss it. If we're not, these ordinances should not be on our agenda. So that's, I don't know what to do. I know we've got to look at each one of these individually, but I don't intend to argue each one of these individually. My question is really procedural. Why are we considering ordinances on the same night that we're considering committee reports? Is this a change for us?
Alderman Mulliner?
And I can't answer your question, but I can answer part of it. And part of it is that this is one of the reasons why I've asked to review Chapter 2 and start working our way through the ordinance book, because of the fact that there's a number of issues that have changed since the change in the council, and we feel that it's necessary for us to review those things, and this is an example of one of those things that's changed. So I can't give you an answer why it's happened, but I can tell you what we're doing.
Just a comeback for that. Yeah, I mean, my question is, if we are to change it, that's fine, but I have not heard a doggone thing about we're going to change this, and I really, to be honest with you, don't think this is terribly fair to the community to make a change like this and without any discussion on it whatsoever.
Sure.
So, that's my point.
City Manager Borchard, do you have your hand up?
Well, there isn't an issue involving a change in the ordinance, as Alderman Rose has pointed out, where the report is seeking an action that would require an ordinance, there will need to be a subsequent, actually, those ordinances should have been under ordinances so that they could have been approved with a first suspension of the rules. Relative to the levy, it is a resolution which is frequently done where the committee report authorizes action, and part of the actions involve a contract, an agreement. That contract agreement is frequently done by resolution. So G and Q go, I think, acceptably with past practice as a report and an accompanying resolution. The Power Mart liquor license issue and the turkey trot, actually, there's a desire going forward that parades and races be approved as they have been in the past, but from an insurance perspective, that we would pass an ordinance that would involve a more formal approval and require more formally the sponsoring entity to have appropriate insurance, which was required before, but it's a more appropriate process going forward that it be done by ordinance. Power Mart, that ordinance requesting that is that ordinance?
Yeah, there is.
New license classification.
On as an ordinance.
Oh, that ordinance is under ordinances as it should be. So that would require a suspension of the rules to allow the ordinance to be considered as it's recommended in the committee report section.
Clarification?
Alderman Rose.
So you're saying there is no change of practice here? I guess I'm not seeing it, but it seems to me, I understand that we have in times past suspended the rules. Usually it's requested specifically and individually. There's a reason for it, and that's fine with me. It just seems odd that I noticed 3 of them here and we got all of them together, so.
Well, let me just follow up on what Tom said. I think appropriately, the ordinance with respect to the Daniel Gibbons run should have been included under ordinance so that you could have suspended your rules. Same with the engineering services for levies. So there's really, from my view, no change in the practice at this point, except that we probably ought to have done what you just did, Alderman Rose, and that is put those 2 items under this section of the agenda where we could have waived our rules. I think that they have all appeared because, as you've appropriately pointed out, the Dan Gibbons turkey trot we're out of time. We're just out of time. With respect to the Power Mart, that was a request of the petitioner because he is either open or seeking to open within the next day or 2. With respect to the levy, I can't really say, but I suspect there's probably some. That's a resolution. A resolution that doesn't need the same treatment as, I guess, an ordinance. So, but I guess to wind back, from my perspective, at this point, there's no change in the policy.
Alderman Molitor.
Yeah, I guess I have the same concern that Alderman Rose has. I'm concerned about the fact that we seem to be accelerating these reports and ordinances and coming faster and faster at us as far as the fact that we're not holding them for those 2 weeks, and I'd rather hold those for the 2 weeks. I have no problem with the Dan Gibbons thing where it's something where it's a timely issue that maybe we just missed the ball as far as getting the report in on time, but like the Power Mart thing, to me, I see no rush in that. I see there's no need to hurry that through. I mean, he can open with or without a liquor license. I mean, he doesn't, so he still has a couple of weeks without a liquor license. But I think that it was something that was set up that was a good practice so that the public had an opportunity to look at the ordinance and look at the reports and be able to respond to us if they saw issues. And I just have some concerns that it seems to be happening more and more often.
All right. Alderman Nybo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'd like to make a quick, related but yet independent observation, which is that usually in the past, all of our ordinances and resolutions were accompanied with a council action memo, which for me was always very helpful in referencing, you know, even though you always review the ordinance and the resolution itself, a summary of how this got before us. And usually there was a reference to the committee report, you know, on such and such date, the council passed a report out of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee, et cetera, et cetera. And I've noticed that on some of our ordinances and resolutions, there are council action summaries, but on some of them, including item Q, there was not. And it does cause some slight confusion to me. You know, I had to reference, item Q, okay, well, when did this come before us, in a committee form, and then you have to look back and you say, oh, well, this relates to item G, which is before us. So I guess my observation would just be, if we could have a consistent practice with these council action summaries and actually reference them back to the committee report that was approved, it just helps me in understanding what's before me on a weekly basis.
Alrighty. Alderman Rose.
I just have one further comment. Also, if, for the committee chairs, if it is the expectation that an ordinance, you're going to ask for that approval of that on the same night as a committee meeting, that should be included in a committee report, and none of these reports have that. None of them say that. So it makes it, I assume that that's what, and I don't understand the reason for it. So that, it's like I didn't know the rush. Why does this why does this business owner need, what is the rush for him to get this 2 weeks? I don't know. If there's a reason, that's reasonable. I think we ought to know it, and the wheels of government shouldn't be, just run by protocol. If there's a reason, let's move it forward. That's great. But if there isn't, then we need to know that, so.
Sure. Anybody else? Alderman Kennedy.
Since the item in front of us is related to the levy, let me just speak to that, if I could, please. The reason why it was pushed forward is because we are in a very tight timeline. Although we have to have this project done by July 1st of next year, and that is the certification by FEMA of the levee along Salt Creek. It's really important we get this going now because there's a significant amount of engineering work that has to be done. That all needs to be in place so that the earthwork can begin straight away in the spring so that FEMA can be out here and get that done. And if we don't get it done on time, there's a chance that 1,400 homes go back into the floodplain and all the residents have to go and get insurance, and we don't want to do that. So perhaps we should, if we want to make some changes to the report to say due to the time constraints we need to move this forward now, we can do that, but we really do need to get this going right away.
And my point, yeah, in the spirit of transparency, I just think we should, let people know that. And it's clear that there is a reason to do that. I absolutely don't dispute that. I just think we should let people know that. Really, the operations of City Council, we can see clear. They're not always that clear to people. And I think in the spirit of openness, people ought to know when they can come and talk about something. And that's very important to me. So that's, I think all of these are great. I intend to vote for every single one of them, but I think that's an important issue.
Very good. All righty. Any other discussion on item G? If not, I would ask Clerk Spencer to do a voice, or we can do this by voice. All in favor to approve item G, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, item G is approved. Next on the agenda is item H, report from Paramount. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the report, please. And
it is therefore the recommendation of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee that the city attorney be authorized to prepare the appropriate ordinance to provide the availability of a liquor license for the sale of beer and wine for Power Mart with the recommendations as listed above. Respectfully submitted, Public Affairs and Safety Committee, signed by Patrick Wagner, Chairman, Chris Nybo, Vice Chairman, and Paula Pezza.
All righty. And as for a motion and a second to put this item on the floor, please, for discussion. A motion by Alderman Wagner, second by Alderman Nybo. Discussion.
I'd just like to refer to Alderman Mulliner, please.
There we go. Mulliner.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands this one. This is one that I had a little struggle with because my initial reaction was we've spent the better part of 10 years making sure that gas stations didn't sell liquor, and then we end up with one right off the bat it's a gas station and it's selling liquor. But I want to make a couple of things real clear about this. I think the committee did a very good job on this. I think They looked at a number of different issues. One of the things was the actual square footage of the building. Another one was that there needed to be a second person ringing up the alcohol that was away from the gas sales. And those are things that, to me, make this a valid issue, unlike the gas stations that were coming in and asking whether they could sell liquor, where they had to be monitoring the gas all the time, and they were also trying to monitor the liquor. That would not work. This is an entirely different environment, and I wanted to make that very clear to everybody, that this is not the same as what other people were coming in asking for. Okay? So I am going to support this.
Thanks, Alderman. Anybody else? Alderman Nybo.
Yes, just a quick follow-up on that. I agree with Alderman Mulliner. Just to recharacterize something that he said, I don't think even calling this a gas station selling liquor is an appropriate characterization. This is more a liquor store or a food store selling gas. And these are quite unusual, but the best way to analogize this is, at least what I know of, is Costco. This is like, Costco sells gas, but Costco does a lot more. So I don't think we'd characterize Costco as a gas station selling TVs or selling food or selling beer and wine. It's just an ancillary service that's provided as part of a larger business entity. So that's how we distinguish this from just a gas station coming in requesting liquor license.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a voice vote on this. All in favor to approve item H, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And on to item I, it's a report. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the report, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee that the City Council authorize the city manager to issue a parade permit on the 26th, for the 26th annual Dan Gibbons Turkey Trot to be held on Thanksgiving Day, November 26, 2009, from 5 a.m. until 12 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Public Affairs and Safety Committee, signed by Patrick Wagner, Chairman, Chris Nybo, Vice Chairman, and Paula Pezza.
And it is for a motion and a second to put this report on the floor, please. Alderman Wagner, motions, and a second by Alderman Nybo. Discussion? Alderman Wagner?
Yeah, if I could, it just seems like Alderman Rose had pulled this just for some clarification.
Right.
But I don't believe that there's any major discussion that needs to ensue here. I think it's more of a time issue.
Can you get me to win that race? That's all. We vote that in along with this.
Throw me in the wagon.
Alderman Hipskin.
Would it be appropriate to make a motion to suspend the rules to get this through right now?
City Attorney Serino, would that be after we vote on the report, and then we vote on the suspension of rules for the
Yes,
ordinance?
I think on this one, you just a voice vote in favor, and then when M comes, which is next on your agenda, you're going to have to move to suspend your rules, because
Okay.
it is an ordinance.
Oh, okay. There
Very
it is.
good. That's a good question, though. Any other discussion before I call for a vote on this as well? All righty, all in favor to approve item I at this time, please
Aye.
Please state aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that motion passes. Item M as in Mary is an ordinance. I would actually ask for a motion to suspend rules on this particular item. Alderman Mulliner motions, Alderman Nybo seconds. Discussion, or do we have to vote on a suspension? We do
Yes.
that by voice, or can we do?
Voice.
Okay. All in favor to suspend rules so we can vote on this ordinance on the same day as the report? Please say aye. Anybody opposed? That does pass, and we'll go on to item N. I ask Clerk Spencer to read the, or M as in Mary. Yeah.
We have to vote on the ordinance now.
Yeah, item M.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would ask Clerk Spencer to read the ordinance, but thank you.
An ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a non-exclusive license agreement by and between Daniel Gibbons and the City of Elmhurst, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois.
All righty. And at this time, I'd ask for a motion and a second to put it on the floor, please. Alderman Morley, Alderman Gutenkopf. Any discussion? Okay. We'd have to do a roll call vote on this. Clerk Spencer, please call the roll.
Morley.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. That ordinance is officially passed. We'll now go on to item N, which is going to be a reschedule, a table of this ordinance. I need a motion and a second to table the ordinance, please. Alderman.
I need a point of order with City Attorney. Is it a motion to table or a motion to discuss a date certain?
If you move to table it, it'll automatically, under Robert's rules, come up at your next regular.
Has to.
It has to.
And since I'm unclear on the requirements of the timing on this, I'm asking the City Attorney, is that adequate?
It is. Just
Okay.
move to table it. It'll automatically appear on your next
Move to
regular
table.
meeting agenda.
Okay, Alderman Morley, Alderman Mulliner, and we can do a voice vote on that table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion is tabled to our next meeting, December 7th. On to item Q. It's an ordinance. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the ordinance, please. A resolution. I apologize.
A resolution to approve and authorize the execution of professional design and construction engineering services agreement for the levee improvement project by and between Engineering Resources Associates, Inc. and the City of Elmhurst.
All right, and I ask for a motion and a second to put this on the floor, please. Alderman Kennedy, Alderman Rose, discussion. Alderman Kennedy.
Yes, we need to do this now.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, I would ask for a roll call vote, please, on this.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Pittskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. That resolution is approved. We can get on to getting work done with that item. Item R is a resolution. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read that resolution, please.
A resolution determining and estimating property taxes to be levied for the 2009 tax year of the City of Elmhurst, Illinois.
All righty. And at this time, I'd ask for a motion and a second to put this on the floor, please. Alderman Hipskin, followed by Alderman Leader, and discussion.
Actually, it was pulled.
Alderman
by
Pezza discussed.
Alderman Pezza. So do you have any questions?
I'll-
I think we're just going to put it out on the table for discussion, right?
Yeah, this is.
Isn't that what you wanted?
What I understand is like belts and suspenders for a previous vote on setting the wall. But I'll defer to Alderman Pezza
Sure.
if you have questions.
Not a question, I just wanted to state that I do understand what this resolution states, and I understand the purpose of the resolution. However, I personally cannot justify, nor do I agree with the dollar figures given in this resolution. Therefore, I cannot support this resolution at this time.
Okay, very good. And just so everybody knows, this was basically supporting the wall that we established with the levy. It's not necessarily what we're going to vote on and approve, but it was just to establish a wall. So any other discussion on this before I call this for a roll? Alderman Leader.
I think some voice should be given to the other side of the issue here. Some people compare the city of Elmhurst to a private business. The goal of a business is to make a profit. The role of the city of Elmhurst is to provide for the health, welfare, and safety of its citizens. If we don't do it, who is going to do it? When an individual business is not profitable, it cuts back on employees and production. When the city of Elmhurst cuts back on employees, they are policemen, firemen, and public works workers, which total some 85% of our budget. Fewer firefighters to respond, fewer police cars patrolling our streets, fewer streets and forestry workers to keep those streets and parkways from falling apart. If an individual business falters, there is always another that is succeeding. The public will not suffer. When the city of Elmhurst slashes policemen, firemen, and streets and forestry workers, everyone in Elmhurst suffers. Now, no one at this dais wants to raise taxes. It takes great political courage to raise taxes. If we do raise taxes, it's only because a majority of those sitting at this dais, the 15 of us, are convinced that the cost of not raising taxes would be far too high in terms of the loss of services and quality of life in Elmhurst. A year ago, I voted against raising the tax levy by $18 per year, $18 per year per household. I voted against it. I simply saw no need of it at the time. Conditions were definitely unsettling and not good, but I misread the situation, quite frankly. But since then, conditions have drastically worsened, as we all know. The present situation can be only compared to the Great Depression. There's been nothing like it in my lifetime. I'm 73, nothing, though I was born in the middle of the Great Depression. Also, in the fall of '08, there was no question of serious budget cuts in the essential areas. Elmhurst, like every other municipality in the United States, is now the victim of great economic forces beyond its control, which has forced us to consider raising the city property tax levy, which is incidentally, effectively, the lowest in DuPage County. The lowest in DuPage County. Now, of this tax levy, this property tax, city property tax, only 5 cents out of every dollar goes to the city. Think about that. Only 5 cents. That's your property taxes. Where does the rest go? Well, of course, it goes to the schools, some 70%, the parks, 20%, the county, the townships, the state. But everything that this city has to provide for, essentially, to a certain degree, comes from that 5 cents. Oh, yes, we rely to a certain extent on retail sales tax, but as the gentleman pointed out, that's headed south. We can't kid ourselves. And when will it come back? I haven't got the slightest idea. Now, there's a proposal before us to raise the tax levy by a maximum of 89%. Correct. Absolutely correct, 89%. But that equates, on average, and nobody has told you this, to $24 per month. $24 per month. That's what we're talking about. Now, the average household will then be paying a grand total of $51 per month in city property taxes next year. That's the city property tax, $51 per month. Now, the real question for me is what will happen if we reject raising taxes by that $24 a month? What will happen if we do not raise taxes at all? No taxes. Give you what you want. No taxes. What will happen? There's cause and effect here. We cannot escape the consequences of our actions. Not me, not any of you out there. Well, here's what I think is going to happen. Or I should say this is a fact. And what some people call scare tactics, I call uncomfortable facts. We will have to cut some $6 to possibly up to $7 million from the operating budget. That's it. That's what we got to do. There won't be any tax raise. So what happens when we cut $6 to $7 million from the operating budget? Well, there are no easy cuts left. The only cuts are left that go to the very heart of the body politic, the very heart. We have already cut $4 million in so-called non-essential areas, and that makes up 15% of the operating budget. That's where the problem is. That's where we have to deal with. That's where we have to cut. Essential spending, which includes police, fire, and public works, constitutes 85% of our budget. Now, we already took the axe, not just the knife, to public works. And believe me, if those cuts stick, you're going to feel them. You're going to feel them big time. In crumbling streets, and crumbling curbs, and crumbling sidewalks, and snow that's not removed promptly, and branches that are going to lay there for weeks because we don't have the manpower or the equipment. But that's okay. That's what you want. You want to cut services? Fine. So the only area that remains to be cut, the only area, is police and fire, which constitutes nearly 50% of the operating budget. Now, 90% of police and fire are personnel. Think about that, personnel. All right. The suggested tax hike is in excess of some 4.6 million. That's what's on the table. Now, you split that proportionally, and that equates to approximately 19% of the police department and the fire department. So, if we do not raise taxes, and believe me, ladies and gentlemen, this is not scare tactics. If we do not raise taxes, we will have to cut 19% of the police and fire departments. There's simply no other place to find that $6 to $7 million. It's not there. All right. What's going to happen then? Overnight, Elmhurst will cease to be a safe city. Overnight, we would fear for the safety of our spouses and children walking after dark. What will happen next? The property and casualty companies will spring into action and raise your homeowners' insurance policies by premiums great enough to compensate themselves for the additional fire insurance risks involved, as well as burglary. After all, you're not going to have as many policemen out there. You're not going to have as many firemen out there. You're going to have a good deal less. Common sense alone tells you what's going to happen to the dollar value of your homes. They will drop dramatically. Who wants to move in a community with high fire insurance premiums, with a decimated, devastated police and fire department? All right. If we do not raise taxes, I fear, and this is from the bottom of my heart, we will despoil our beautiful Elmhurst. We will strike hard at the dollar values of our homes. We will raise our homeowners' policies to a point where they cancel out any gain from not raising taxes and open wide the police barriers to the east against the flow of heroin from the west side of Chicago into our schools. We are stripping ourselves bare if we don't raise taxes. If we take that $6 to $7 million out of the only place we can take it, police and fire, is $24 per month. Really too much to avoid such a disaster? Let me repeat that. Is $24 a month too much to avoid such a disaster to our beloved town? And we all love it, all of us. I view this $24 per month as an investment and the future of Elmhurst. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Anybody else for discussion? Alderman Brown?
Thank you. My question is more of a procedural question, and I want to make sure that not only myself but the full city council understands the procedure here on this item, as well as the discussion that we will be having in item 8B. This resolution I heard mentioned as it was called upon is a belt and suspenders for what we've already discussed on November 2nd. So to clarify that, what that means to me is this is just reinforcing the public hearing that we've just had. This is not stating, and I will request the city manager to correct me if I'm wrong on this, this is not stating that this will be our ultimate tax levy, and we are not giving direction by this resolution as this is the proposed tax levy that we'll be voting on in potentially a couple weeks.
Alderman, I'll defer that to the city manager. I believe you're, in fact, totally correct in how you're explaining that. But City Manager Borchert?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other discussion? Alderman Pezza?
Just a quick point also. I'm assuming that when we get to 8B, we will also be able to discuss, as Alderman Leader just did in this. So I think I may be more comfortable discussing under 8B.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So I'd like to call the question.
All righty. At this point, I'd ask, we do this by voice vote? No, by a roll call? I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please, on item R.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Gudenkauf.
Aye.
Pezza.
No.
Shea.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
No.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 2 nays.
12 ayes, 2 nays. That resolution does pass. Now we're going to the next portion of our meeting. Item number 8, reports and recommendations of elected officials, appointed and elected officials. Item A, coming from me, the mayor. A couple things I would like to mention.
What point of order, Mr. Mayor? Were we voting on? This is about Alderman Hipskin's request to call a question. If there's no objection to it, then that passes without comment. We don't have to vote on it if he calls the question.
I would defer to City Attorney Storino. I believe if the question's called, we just go right to the item on the table at the time.
That is the procedure unless somebody wants to challenge the chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Alderman Gudenkauf. No problem. Updates and recommendations from elected officials and also appointed officials. Item A, from myself. I would first of all like to let everybody know that, as you can see, these are tough decisions that we have to make. You don't see all the information that we have. Mr. Levin, who mentioned that he was one of the co-chairs of the task force. I surrounded myself with a lot of talent on this task force. I believe there were 7 CPAs, 5 MBAs, people that care about this community. Having been a Elmhurst College alum that majored in business management, I surrounded myself with talent. And I wanted to hear from the people as to what the people wanted in this community. We want a high-quality life, but we also want low taxes. So these are tough decisions that we're up here making today, and we'll have to make on December 7th as well. We do appreciate everybody's comments, and we're going to take those to heart. Second note, last week we had a very successful evening in Bensonville. The one-room schoolhouse was officially annexed into Bensonville, and that was approved by the City Council of Bensonville. And I thank Mayor Soto for making that happen, along with this City Council. I also like to thank the folks that came out, Joanne Brundage, Tom Marcucci, our previous mayor, who made a very great introduction. Our staff, Brian Berghager, who did a phenomenal job as well. And I did cleanup, and we were able to get it passed. There was some tension over there with some folks that came out against it for some reason that I have no clue why they would want to oppose something this this historic and this nice. I know many of us aldermen and many of the aldermen at the council there, before they were aldermen, were fighting for this, and it's done. So it's now annexed, and we're gonna get it going. So, secondly, and I'll invite the York Dukes boys cross country team, who successfully took a third place finish, to our next council meeting as well. I understand they are running a national meet, but I will be extending an invite as well to them for their great deeds, and a third place, missing first place by 17 points. So most teams would aspire to take third, and we're always in the hunt. Last year we lost by a point, and this year we lost by 17. But we're proud of our guys, and we're gonna have Coach Newton and the team out as well. Now I'll go on to item B, which is the continuation of discussion of our 2010-2011 budget and tax levy. I defer this to City Manager Borchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to, just to frame what I would anticipate to be a later discussion of tax levy, a little bit as to how did we arrive at where we're at tonight on November 16th. Don't intend to get into the great detail that you've covered in the past in the council's deliberations in several committee of the whole meetings, but did want to just quickly go through that. Back in July, there was a detailed review of the operating budget and its deficit to expenditures necessary to support what has been the past traditional level of service that the Elmhurst community has expected. The City Council has passed a number of policies. Those policies get handed to the city staff for the city staff to implement and to operate. We've discussed in the past that a number of those policies have in fact been in competition, in a constructive tension with each other relative to providing services, and the City Council has been made aware of those areas of tension and has clarified and has consistently said, provide the service rather than to back off of the service. As an example, there's a policy that says in the general fund there should be 3 months minimum revenues, or 3-month minimum level in that bank account of the operating expense of the general fund. Understanding that our expenses have gone up, even though they're being controlled and constrained and throttled, and cuts been made, operating efficiencies sought and identified, we've still not been able to maintain revenues to match those expenditures, and operating reserves have been used. With the permission of the City Council, we explained back in July that it appeared as if those revenues were not going to be coming back, and there needed to be a greater level of concentration and direction as to what do we do next: raise revenues or cut services, or do both, and what's going to be the clarification of the cuts in the revenues. As an example, over $1 million of expenses have been curtailed from this year's budget, and last item, been authorized to use the working cash fund as well as other contingency accounts. We continue from a staff perspective and a council perspective to look at other areas of expenditure reduction. A consultant looked over the shoulder of the city staff and provided a report for the staff benefit and for the community's benefit. That's available on the website. The big item that has changed, not a surprise, but as to the details, maybe somewhat clarifying, are the revenues from the sales tax. This chart represents the last 2 years of actual received sales tax dollars. From the top, November, October, September goes backwards from where we're at. Those are the most recent receipts of sales tax compared to the same month prior year. So it's November receipt versus 12 months ago November receipt. Those top 3 months, November, October, September, are sales tax revenues which have come in, frankly, after the Mayor's Task Force report was completed, and it shows that the revenues for those 3 months are significantly down compared to the prior 12 months, and they're significantly down from our estimated 8% reduction in revenues, which was used as we projected our revenue projections. That is just, if you could, a placeholder as to the ongoing issue of revenues to expenditures and the moving aspect of the economy as it's affecting our ability as a city to pay for services. Sales taxes overall, going back many, many, many years, council has seen versions of this in the past. We've updated now based on the last receipt of sales tax dollars to a new projected total revenue for the current fiscal year, which shows, again, the dismal performance of the economy. We're all hoping that that turns around. I'm not sure we've seen the worst of it yet. Unfortunately, the tax schedule the city must follow as prescribed by the state of Illinois has it that we need to, as a city, identify a tax levy by the end of December for dollars to be collected next summer to finance a chunk of next year's operating budget. I think past councils have aggressively attempted to allow property tax to be used in the Elmhurst community by the other taxing districts and to not take advantage of it. This is the history of just the city tax rate. This isn't tax dollars, but tax rate. Certainly that downward trend is significantly attributed to the increased value of the community and the increased value of everyone's home, but of the increased value of new growth and of economic development. Those new tax dollars coming in have allowed the rate to go down. What was on the consent agenda, as Alderman Bram identified, is the tax levy resolution as to a maximum tax levy, which was published, which was the foundation for the tax public hearing earlier this evening. If the maximum proposed tax levy is approved, it would increase the rate as shown on the far right-hand side of this chart. That is the maximum. The City Council is authorized to levy within its wisdom the tax anywhere below that, but you cannot go above it. Where the property taxes go is not new information. On the tax levy that is in existence today, the percentages are split as shown. 5.27% city, the rest the other taxing entities. If the proposed maximum would be levied, the city share would go up significantly. It's a significant percentage adjustment. It would go up to about 9.4%. But I would suggest that when you look at that pricing on the total tax bill, it's still about 25% lower than the average of what is on the taxing bills of other cities within DuPage County, meaning that Elmhurst has been able, because of its comprehensive plan and because of its industrial park and its major retail areas, it has been able to subsidize the property tax bill in a significant way, but those areas that have provided the subsidy are no longer performing the way they used to. One way to react is to cut services, cut expenses, but raise some revenue to maintain the core and critical services, which is my understanding of the task force report, which was cut expenditures by 1/3 and raise revenue by 2/3. Even with that, the city's new rate will be significantly lower than most other communities' rates. As an EAV rate, here's where Elmhurst is, second to last, only Oak Brook lower, which doesn't have a rate. With the maximum, again, the maximum, Elmhurst would go up a few places, assuming those other communities don't raise their rates. We understand that Westmont and Downers Grove is definitely proposing rates that would allow them to go over Elmhurst. We don't believe any community is going to go and slide below Elmhurst. Glen Ellen and Hinsdale might stay below Elmhurst, but Elmhurst, even with the maximum adjustment, would be, I think, priced very competitively relative to services provided and services then charged for across the board. You've heard about certainly the mayor's task force. Their recommendation, as shown on their executive summary, is as follows. Again, it recommends approximately a 1/3 reduction in current expenditures with relative to the shortfall, and making up the remaining shortfall with a combination of property tax adjustment and motor fuel tax. Here are the details of how that would show up. Should that be the rate that one would, as a majority of the council, propose? And again, this shows the maximum, which is what was identified in the public hearing notice, which would, again, roll out as follows. On that average market value home, as established by DuPage County, they take the average EAVs within the community, identify the average. So we've used that. I think the task force used that as a calculation from a city staff perspective, repeated it here. This is, again, the maximum, which would result in the increases as shown. Not that that would be what the council would wish to do, but at this point, or when you're completed with your discussion, staff is here certainly, as it has been in the past, to answer questions as best we can. In the past, there has been finance committee recommendations which then get approved by the city council to allow the attorney to prepare an ordinance of a tax levy. My understanding in this current situation, because the shortfall is so significant and no longer the ability to rely on fund balance to make up the difference, the city council opted to work on the tax levy and the budget as a committee of the whole. So without a committee report, it's the committee of the whole's responsibility to resolve, after its discussion, what should be the property tax rate to ask the attorney to prepare the ordinance. So we would, from a staff perspective, to stay on the schedule that would allow the tax levy to be approved at the first meeting in December. There needs to be some motion along the lines of, as identified, fill in the amount, fill in a blank, but it can be no larger than that maximum amount that was in the tax levy public hearing notice. In addition, my understanding is that the notion of not abating the bonds that have previously been executed that have an involvement with general fund would be applied, but the other general obligation bonds that are financed by the utility fund, the parking fund, would in fact be abated, and we would need such a addition to the motion to direct the attorney to prepare the abatement ordinances for December 7th. So again, we would, my perspective as the city manager, I would report to the community that the city staff has for years attempted to apply best management practices, be productive, be effective, efficient, apply above average performance levels in conduct of their work, and to deliver that type of quality service to the community. And in return, the community has provided a very competitive compensation package that is appreciated and that employees worked hard for. There have been cutbacks, there have been reductions in staffing, and there appears to be, with even the task force recommendation, a need that an additional $1 million to $1.5 million, and depending on how the revenues continue to slide or not slide further, there'll need to be another $1.5 million to $2 million in cuts made. So I would believe it's inappropriate to say that the city staff has suggested that solution is all on revenue enhancement. It is, as has been, again, from my understanding, past practice, that services need to be provided first and do it efficiently, effectively, and productively, and creatively as well, and finding new and different ways of providing financing. That's been done. Other communities, frankly, we look to Elmhurst as an example. We do look to other communities as an example. But we're at the end. We can't use the fund balance any longer. This next year's budget has to be, in my opinion, as your city manager representing city staff, we can't spend more money than is provided. We can't provide all the services you've asked the council, the community, you've asked the city to provide. Can't be provided without more revenue. At this point, we need to understand what is the revenue that is going to be provided. With that understood, city staff will do its darndest to provide the best possible municipal service delivery machine that you can see, you can have, but it will result in less services. The budget follows after, at this point, an understanding of what the revenue is. That's our report. We'll take questions and help in the discussion.
Thank you, City Manager Borchert. Before we go to questions, I just wanted to point out, can you bring up the bar graph of where we're at right now and where we will be if this levy were to be passed? I believe that's with the levy included, correct? So we go from 34th lowest into page.
That's with the.
That's with the levy.
Fire department.
That's with police and fire, but that would be with the full levy in place.
This is
correct?
If the maximum proposed property tax levy were approved and no other community changed its rates, that would show the new lineup.
And where are we at right now? Can you please indicate where we're at right now? Okay, so right now, just so everybody sees this, Oak Brook, which has the mall and has a lot of sales tax coming in, is dead last. They have no city property tax. We are officially dead last because we're one of the 34 municipalities in this county that actually assesses a tax. So we are essentially at the very bottom in rate. And if this levy were to pass, where we would go to 9 cents on the dollar, we would go up to 34th, and that's providing the other communities do not increase their levy. And as we know, many of these virtually every single community, I know Schaumburg has no tax because they have Woodfield. They are looking to actually instill a property tax because, you know, our deficit is a direct mirror of sales tax. We're not spending money like sailors up here. We're watching the buck. We're cutting where we can. We've got 2 counters. We had 3 counters downstairs that were just consolidated into 2. We've changed vendors. It saved us money. We've gone to contractual services. So we've been really watching the dollar, especially in these tough times. I see labor out there. I mentioned before, 3-4% increases by the unions. These guys have collectively agreed to take 1%, 1.5%. I know Mr. Diamond and Mr. Levin are very adamant about watching labor right now until this economy comes back around. And we appreciate you guys working hard for us, but we appreciate you working with us at this time. And when times get better, you know, we'll have more to work with, but we need to keep these increases at 1.5, so that, you know, we could make ends meet given these tough times. So I think the bar graphs really are important because it really shows the public what we're doing. And it's in black and white. The numbers speak for itself. And again, we set a wall. We're not necessarily voting for that. We'll hear recommendations in discussion, and I'll now open this to discussion. Anybody have any questions or discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Hipson.
Yeah, actually, Manager Board Chair, if you could go back one slide, I believe. Actually, try one more. I'm looking for the history of the city property tax rate from. Okay, there it is. I think what's important. Do you have a laser? No. No. Okay. I left mine at home. What's important to notice here is the downtrending line right here, and I think about 1998. If we take that as a baseline and look at an average home in Elmhurst, and if we could, and we can't right now, but I think that anybody listening to this, your average home in Elmhurst wasn't $400,000 in 1998. It was probably about half that, which was it may even be a little below. That house has risen to $400,000 over that 10-year period. Sure, it peaked out 2 years ago at $450,000 and went down to $400,000, but there's a direct correlation, an inverse correlation to our housing values going up, our city tax rate going down, our services really from 2000. I think we have approximately the same amount of employees. One thing that has a few things that are working against us. Sales tax are going down. We're not seeing revenue from builders at all because America is not seeing revenues from builders. It has nothing to do with Elmhurst. It has to do with the state of the economy. And we're not also seeing consequences of no new building is you don't have a house that was paying $4,000 a year in taxes all of a sudden paying $12,000. That during that 10-year period of time, that helped us out quite a bit. So we have a number of different things working against us. And if you take a look back at this chart, I took it from 1998. Let's go back to 1976. We were paying 1.3% of each dollar was going into the
17%.
What's that?
It's actually 17%. That was the factor.
Oh, you're right. I can't read that. Actually, 1.2806 was a multiplier. And, now we're at what, these are small numbers. 0.024. And if we go to the proposed $15.5 million tax increase, and I really don't think that we passed the resolution for that tonight. That's probably not exactly where we're going to end up. So if I look back, we're still looking, it was 10, 15 years ago that we're paying this kind of rate, which is still the lowest in the county. So, I mean, it is, we've got to do something. I mean, we can't do what we did last year. The $4.5 million that we're in trouble with this year really would be 3.1 if we did a proper levy last year. It was one of the few times that we didn't do a levy of any percentages. It's a different time, different place, and we're paying for it right now. So I think that the beauty of this is the numbers just don't lie. 2 + 2 = 4. If we look at the cost of the value of our homes, the cost of what we're getting, we're paying $21 a month for police, fire, roads, trees, sewage. It's a pretty good deal, actually, for your average citizen, especially in comparison with what another municipality would be paying, such as Aurora, Glendale, I mean, I don't need to name them all because it's every other one. The only one I need to mention is Oak Brook because they don't have one. Everybody else is paying more than us. So that's that is some of the beauty of this, is that 2 + 2 = 4, and we can look at all the different factors.
Thanks, Alderman Hipskin. And I think, too, what you're trying to get at, back in '76, about 17 cents on the dollar was paid toward property taxes for our town, and now we're down to 5 cents. And that's been basically an element of new growth. It's been an element of raising sales tax revenue that has brought that rate down to that level. So I think we heard the task force earlier talk about new growth, how important it is for economic development, and that's a long-term goal that we really have to, I think, embrace. I know Alderman Morley had a hand up there.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little clarification for the people watching, and maybe the people in the audience, and hopefully get some guidance from either city manager or city attorney. Ultimately, what we're going to do tonight is direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance for the tax levy. Is that correct? So the question I have procedurally, and it's probably for the city attorney, is it required to have this conversation, to have a motion to put this in, or is it appropriate now to have a conversation that we're having, ultimately resulting in a motion?
You can do the discussion because it's called on the agenda for a discussion.
Okay.
I guess the only thing that the staff, including myself, is looking for is at the end of the discussion that there be whatever consensus that you come to so that an ordinance can be placed in front of you on the 7th, okay, with a number in it.
And then after we direct you to prepare the ordinance, we'll vote on that motion, and then December 7th, we will vote on the prepared ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Shea, and then I'll go to Alderman Brown.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm not supporting an 89% tax increase. I don't believe it's the residents' fault that over 8 years the city has overspent and used our savings to maintain a spending habit. When revenue declines, government shouldn't look to burden taxpayers to bail out its spending habits. Let's run the city like a business. When money falls short, you cut expenditures. The economy will recover much quicker if we leave money in the hands of people. Remember the taxpayers. Some have lost jobs, others have taken their second pay cut. The taxpayers are cutting their personal budgets and reducing their spending while the city government is proposing a 1.5% pay increase on non-union employees. We have to make hard choices, whether it means waiting another year to buy new equipment or maybe share equipment intergovernmentally as well as with surrounding communities. We have to stop being the bank for developers and placing all the risk on the taxpayers. We need to decide, just as we do with our own personal budgets, what is a want and what is an actual need. Let's tighten our belts and go on a fiscal diet. Then and only then we would know what dollars we actually need. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Brown, and I'll go to Alderman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question actually is in regards to the proposed tax levy of not larger than $15,505,968, which, funny enough, and this isn't just that the November 9th memo that we got actually was $1 cheaper, so it went up $1. But with that said, my question is a question that's been asked before, and that was, due to the resolution statement, I want to make sure that we're all straight here. The resolution stated that this levy is exclusive of debt service and any portion of that levy attributable to the cost of conducting an election required by the general election law of $15,505,968. Is this proposed levy inclusive or exclusive of the debt service that we will not be abating this year? In other words, is there more to this than the $15 million, 5 and change that we see here for the tax levy due to not abating all of the bonds?
I'll defer it to City Manager Borcher, but I believe the all-in number that we had on the monthly included the the abatement. So we're not going to be adding anything over and above, but I'll defer it to the city manager for discussion on that.
Correct. The maximum would be this 15,505, 96, 7 or 8. That includes the dollars that would not be abated and also includes the library.
Okay, just to follow up then, am I misreading the resolution that said exclusive of the debt service?
Maryland North.
Yeah, I misspoke. The general obligation bonds have previously been levied and are at the county. So Elmhurst will need to abate what it intends to abate, which is the non-general fund portions, but the general fund portions would stay at the county and would be a tax.
So it would be
There would be more.
an additional tax to this 15,500,000 and change.
Right.
Okay, and I think that's a very good point of clarification, that even though it's being stated as no larger than 15,500,000 and change, there would be additional due to not abating all of the GO bonds.
City Manager Borst, I believe that's included in the monthly payment that we worked out, correct?
That's correct. And this sheet, those dollars aren't shown, but on the previous sheets that were part of the task force report and part of what, I think it's actually shown here, this would show the maximum, which would include the city tax increase, the library tax, and then the amount that would not be abated.
Very good.
This shows what a tax payer would receive as a difference.
Can we go to the screen that has the all-in with schools, parks, city? So basically, that's showing a 4.93% increase in property taxes with everybody all in. And I think that's one thing that we really have to stress. While our city taxes are going up substantially, because the other taxing bodies are tax capped and cannot levy at this particular point except for new growth, we're looking at an all-in tax increase of just under 5%, which was almost identical to what everyone had last year. The only difference is the schools got the majority of that increase, and we got virtually zero increase because we didn't levy an increase. So I think what the taxpayers really have to realize is that we're not raising your overall taxes 89%. Your taxes are going up the same as they did last year. We're keeping them low, and at 4.93 is all in, schools, parks, library, city. So I think it needs to be clearer than day, because we can spend this stuff as much as you'd like. We're trying to keep it nice and simple and educated and transparent for the public so everybody understands what's happening. So, anybody else? Alderman Wagner.
Can you also point out the fact that we have abated our bonds and no other municipalities?
Oh, yeah. Alderman Hipskin wanted to point out about in the past. Why don't you speak? Alderman?
Maryland, how many other communities abate their bonds? And do you have that? I know that I'm really putting you on the spot here, but I know that we're one of the few communities that do, and now we're not going to that. Right. So what that means to the taxpayers in our community is that we have, for over 20 years, we've had this luxury of abating our bond. It's really, it's a matter of finance, and our award-winning finance team, which is Tom Drazine and Marilyn, are here to talk to this. This is huge. No other municipalities are doing this at 100%, and quite a few of them are doing it at 0%. I would say at least 75% of them are doing it at 0%. So here we are, and what does that number equate to each year approximately?
The total amount of debt service for this year is $5.1 million. So in past years, the city has abated about $5.1 million. It's always been right about $5 million. So often, the city has abated as much as their total tax levy has been. So there has been significant savings to the residents because of that.
Over a 20-year basis.
Yes.
And so, once again, when we're comparing ourselves to our peers, here we are with a $5.1 million annual savings to the taxpayers, whereas our next community over, and I can point the finger all the way around, including Oak Brook, I'm sure the number's at least 75 or 80% that do not do this. So this increase, whatever it happens to be, and we don't know what that is going to be at this point. We know we can go to 15.5 and some change, but we really have to look at what we've done over a 15-year basis, 20-year basis, and we don't have to look at, I mean, I know I don't want it, nobody wants to raise taxes, but when we look at what we've paid over a period of time, for how long we have paid the amount of money that we paid for the services that we have received, in my opinion, Elmhurst residents have gotten an incredible deal for a great community. I mean, it's almost, I mean, we were having our cake and eating it too. Now it's coming time to really put this back online. Sales tax are down. There's nothing we can do about that. The economy is down. I wish there was something we could do about it. I wish I could do something about it. We have to put these measures in place to assure that our community stays healthy, vibrant into the future. You've elected us to make decisions with the information that we have, and great people around me. I look around and I see, I see diversity up here. I see people up here that have completely opposing opinions. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I disagree. There are different parts, and I mean, when I look at the abatement, that's something that we're bringing up right now, which is different, but it's a luxury we've had for 20 plus years, and it's one that needs to be pointed out to the people. So, at what point do we want everything, and what are we willing to pay for? And someone equated their internet and telephone bill to being twice as much as what they pay for their city services. I said, well, what's more important, police, fire, water, trees, streets, or the internet? Well, the kids answered the internet, but the adults looked at it, they brought it up, and we're like, we're almost losing sight of everything. I said, yes, sometimes we do that, and we're all guilty of it at some points. So,
thank you, Alderman. Very good point. I'm going to go to Alderman Wagner. Before I do that, I wanted to mention both Alderman Wagner and I were both at the drug seminar at York High School, and I had a friend of mine who I wrestled with at York come up to me. He's now a Naperville police officer. His father was, I believe, a deputy chief here, Mr. O'Connell, and we used to call him Okie. Okie came up to me. He goes, Pete, he goes, this is serious stuff. And I said, how bad is it in Naperville? He goes, we got 2 dead, 2. He goes, our ratio between police liaison to student is 750. Ours is 350. He goes, I understand you're running about 67 police officers right now. We normally run around 70. We've been watching the head count. As guys have been retiring, we've been holding back. We haven't been rehiring unless we have to. we're running way understaffed as it is. And the last thing I want to do is put a price on a kid, you know, because we have a ratio that's skewed, you know. And Naperville's a classy town, and you know, they're going through similar things that we are. I don't want to have to look a parent in the face and say, you know what, we didn't have the right resources on your child, you know, and we didn't have these things going on in Cook County, busting them where it's coming from, and following them into DuPage and busting them here because we were running short on manpower. I will not do that as a mayor. I'm sorry, I can't. You know, I ran for mayor for quality of life. I looked at Kathy Jordan speak about the Ride DuPage program that's going to take our seniors that are on dialysis. We had a lot of white hair out in the audience today. These are the seniors that need it the most, and if we don't get some sort of a levy passed of an increase, those programs are gone. We're not going to have enough to, you know, and those are important to me. I ran for office on quality of life, and to see seniors maybe not have transportation, people that are on dialysis that can't drive a car because their doctor says they can't. How are they going to get around? So we have, I saw Metropolitan Family Services had an update on how many people they're treating here. We provide counseling services to our teens, our adults, and our seniors. All these things that we take for granted, that if we don't have the resources, may not be available to our citizens. And so we need to make sure the audience is aware of this. This is information that we see, that we value, at least I think most of us, I would hope to. And even I'd ask the aldermen that are looking to make these cuts, what do you want to cut? What do you want to do without? Because it's easy to say, we'll cut $5-6 million. But what are you going to go without? That's the big thing. We're going to go without the crossing guards. We're going to go without the Ride DuPage. We're going to go without, because something's going to get cut. And if your father gets a heart attack like my dad did 3 years ago, and you want that ambulance there in a minute and a half, you know, what's the price on that? What's the price on the school liaison? So, discussion, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you. However, I did feel like I was being filibustered there for a minute.
Sorry.
Wait. Can I make a comment?
I think we're all on the same team here. I just wanted to have a quick question to City Manager Borchert. There's a city survey that was done in 2008, correct?
Yes.
And what was the response for that city survey? Remember? I'm putting you on the spot. I don't mean to, but I thought you might have it.
I don't remember the response. I know it's a higher response than is typically provided to any survey instrument, because Elmhurst really cares about the community, cares about the services, but it was I think it was over a 60% response ratio.
Which is fairly high, I would think. And the city survey is a great tool that the city councils in the past and now next year will have the opportunity to evaluate the residents themselves and the voice that's coming back up to us. 2006, 2004, 2002, 2000, 1998. I would like to say that probably it's been a similar situation, similar response, and it's online, and the biggest thing is the services, and as Alderman Leader had so eloquently pointed out, I think that some of the deep cuts will be dramatic and will put Elmhurst in a completely new light as a premier city for the DuPage County. So we have a tough job to do, but I just wanted to point out, I'd also like to refer to Alderman Hipskin's mathematics. I think he's absolutely right. 2 + 2 = 4, but I believe those last surveys may have helped previous councils think that 2 + 2 might have equaled 5, and that's obviously wrong. And if we're going to make these cuts and we're going to pass this levy, we would be doing a disservice to the residents if we don't include some sort of economic development discussion. There are no more banks coming into Elmhurst, at least not on my watch. I don't know how that all happened. I wasn't a part of this, but I can tell you moving forward, that will not get a yay vote from me. So I would just like to make sure that as we all peruse all the documentation, I'm not for taxes. But there really is very little wiggle room here, and I think we just have to include economic development discussion along with some of these cuts, because we owe it to the residents to not get into this position 12 months from now. Thank you.
Alderman Hipskin?
Alderman, City Manager Borchert, can you help me out on some mathematics real quickly here? The full amount that we passed in Resolution 50/2009 was 15.505.968. Does that equate to, thank you, Alderman, you give me $89 per household is the piece. That is the maximum that we could do. I would actually like to make a I want to make an amendment here, or do I?
There's nothing, just make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to levy the city taxes equivalent to the amount of $255 per household increase. And that is below the, actually that's below the task force recommendation. So I'd like to make a motion to levy $255 per, in additional taxes.
We need a dollar amount.
Well, you know what, actually, that's what I'm asking, the dollar amount to
City
be
Manager Borchert,
worked
can you
out.
figure that what dollar amount would be? And it'll
Yeah, that would be,
$255, and actually, at that point, once I get that number, I will make the motion for that dollar amount.
a number of the scenarios have been calculated in the past, and the 255, if there would, the increase were at 255 for the average home, it would result in a general tax levy of 8.2 million plus the 6.6 million, resulting in the bottom line there, total per legal notice would be approximately 14,901,000.
I'd like to make a motion to,
Can I have a point of order?
We have a motion on the floor, Alderman?
Do a
Unless
point
you're
of order.
seconding.
Point of order. Yes. A point of order for
Question.
City Attorney Serino?
Sure.
Would it not be the more democratic way to do things, to first let everyone have a chance to speak before we make a change? Or is
Making a
that,
change. He was making a motion.
or motion, whatever? Not everyone gets a chance to speak? Is that?
Well, we'll have a motion and a second and discussion.
I don't think I can answer that question.
Alderman Pezzo, there'll be time for discussion. If we get a second, we'll have discussion, and you'll be,
So it'll be based on the new numbers?
this is
The
based
discussion?
on the motion,
But after the motion, the discussion would then be based on
on
the
the
new
number
numbers?
that he's discussing, correct?
we don't have a number.
We don't have a number right now, but he's
beginning point.
trying to begin to find out what the ultimate number will be. What he's asking for is a motion to go with the 255 increase per home versus the 289 that we've set the wall at. And we're asking City Manager Borchert to find out what that number is when it's multiplied out. Do we know what that number is, City Manager Borchert?
Yeah, I think it's in the blank there, in the amount of blank, but no larger than 15,000,005, that blank would be, to allow for a 255 average increase, would be $14,901,717.
So 14,000,009, say that again?
I got it.
14,901,717.
I'd like to make a motion to the 2010 levy be $14,901,717.
All right, and I ask for a second. Alderman York, and discussion. Go to Alderman Gutenkopf, and then I'll go to Alderman Morley, and then Alderman Leader, and I'll go to Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. The arbitrariness of this number strikes me as interesting and rather unusual. We've spent an awful lot of time and energy talking about tax rates and
It's only arbitrary to you.
Pardon me, I have the floor, Mr.
Yep.
Hipskin, I have the floor. We've spent an awful lot of time discussing tax rates. A tax rate is simply a multiplier number we apply to an equalized assessed value to achieve a total levy. Total levy number is really the critical issue here at this discussion. What our tax rate is compared to neighboring communities is really irrelevant. What we have to be looking at is whether comparable communities are levying as much or more to run their towns or less to run their towns. What I think we need to be concerned with here is how much does it cost a comparable town to run itself? Can we do it more efficiently? Can we do it for less? Alderman Hipskin mentioned that we need to do something. Well, I think we need to operate differently. I think what we heard today, an overwhelming majority of the citizens that spoke tonight, 5-1, 15-3 of all of the speakers, made it pretty clear that times are hard. We're really in a down economy, and we seem to be failing to recognize that. We're talking about raising money as if, you know, people have this kind of disposable income to spend on their internet connection, and, well, if you can have an internet connection, sure, you can pay your property tax increase. I'm not convinced that we've got that kind of disposable income in Elmhurst anymore. The radio report I heard today said that 17% of Americans are unemployed or underemployed. I heard at least one unemployed individual speak tonight. I heard at least one retired individual who's living on a very truncated fixed income speak tonight. And to be so cavalier about how we propose to raise this tax without having an equally difficult discussion about realistically cutting services strikes me as disingenuous. And I think many of the people I heard speak tonight seemed to recognize that cuts in services were going to affect them, but that property tax increases were going to affect them even more so. And for that reason, I'm not comfortable bandying about these small cuts. Alderman Hipskin's proposed cut is about $600,000. I don't see that as enough to throw the balance of the burden into a more equal distribution between the city and the taxpayers. Right now, we are trying to find $6 million. About a third of that is coming from cuts, and about 2/3 of that is going to come from the tax levy. I think that if I give the citizens of this town enough credit for the intelligence that I heard tonight, they want to see a more equitable distribution. I never heard anybody say, don't tax me at all. People recognize they have to pay for services, and I think that's been a big part of this discussion tonight, is do people recognize they have to pay for services? Sure they do. But I also heard them say overwhelmingly that they want to see us do things differently, and that they're willing to tighten the belt for a little while until the economy improves, and they've got disposable income to spend in Elmhurst so that the sales tax revenue comes back to us. I got an email today from a resident who said, we're very unhappy with the possibility of $500 more in city property taxes. Our taxes have risen from $3,600 to $8,400 a year in the past few years. This is for a 95-year-old, 1,750 square foot house in urgent need of repairs that we can't afford. Well, that means that they're not spending any money in our community on people who can afford to fix their house. As our income falls with the economy, it is nearly impossible to come up with the extra $4,800 yearly in property taxes. This leaves us with almost nothing to spend at local businesses beyond the occasional cup of coffee. We no longer attend movies regularly or dine out weekly. I think everybody's in that boat. And unless we start to talk about real cuts in the city budget and recognize that we are going to have to cut back on services, we can't keep operating the way we've been. I can't possibly support this property tax levy the way it is. So without the numbers at my hand, I'd like to amend Alderman Hipskin's motion to strike that balance back to more of a 50-50 split between the $6 million. I'd like to raise half of it through property tax and cut half of it out of the city budget instead of a 1/3, 2/3 ratio. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Morley, I know you were next, and then I'll go to
I just a little unclear. Was that a motion? Because I'm not sure if it was.
Well, I need the numbers, so perhaps someone could run those numbers for me.
14,901,717.
No, that's those.
Oh,
No.
That's Alderman Hipskin's number.
Okay.
If that's a motion, we need a second.
Yeah, I didn't hear anybody second, so I was
Well,
going.
then I would maybe ask Alderman Gutenkopf if she could check with city staff and come up with a number. We'll get back to her if she wants to make a motion, and we can continue conversation.
And I'll
Would
ask
would
the
that be
city staff
okay?
the city staff supplied Alderman Hipskind with a number. Perhaps they'd be so gracious as to supply me with that a number that I've requested.
I supplied them.
Very good.
This property tax levy assumes that we're going to raise 2/3 of what we need in the property tax and cut 1/3 of that $6 million out of the city budget. I'd like to see it's more even distribution of raising half of what we need and cutting half of what we need from the city budget.
So we'll work off of the 6.7 budget needs and leave the same assumption at 2 cents per gallon motor fuel tax, subtract 400 from 6.7 to come up with whatever that number would be, something less than 4068. Thank you. We'll get that number.
Alderman Morley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things, and I might reserve some comments for later. This was kind of the point I was clarifying or trying to clarify originally. We can have a discussion with or without a motion. So we started a discussion, then Alderman Hipskind motion, and that motion is on up for discussion right now. So if there's any confusion, we all still have plenty of time to talk, and there will be a final vote. That's one thing I wanted to clarify. Second of all, I actually appreciate Alderman Hipskind's motion to add clarification to this conversation. We started out with some very complicated stuff, and it's challenging for us to understand, and we've been doing it for quite some time and poring over this stuff. I appreciate what Alderman Bram asked. Is the abatement in that number? Is the abatement not in that number? You know, city manager, what's the 15 million really mean? Is it more than that? Is it less than that? I think that at some point we needed to get down to a dollars per household discussion. So in that I support Alderman Hipskind and appreciate the simplicity that he's brought to it. Not everybody needs to, well, not everyone cares whether we're abating bonds or not. They want to know what the impact of their wallet is. So I appreciate that. In this case, and it's easier for me, now when we get to a motion, as Alderman Gutenkopf illustrated, we're going to have to get to some exact numbers. But in this case, I appreciate it. I will also point out that Alderman Hipskind, and I believe he pointed out at the beginning of his motion, the last thing I saw from city staff was an approximate $289 increase, incremental increase to taxes. That included not abating bonds. In fact, one of the people in the audience actually mentioned, well, geez, if you know, city staff recommended even more, or there was a recommendation out there that exceeded the task force. And then the task force, to the best of my recollection, was $259 per household. So I'd just like to point out that Alderman Hipskind's motion at this point, his recommendation is $255 increase. So that's certainly less than city staff original recommendation and less than the task force. Oh, while I do have the floor, I would like to say, I think I'd like to once again thank the task force for all of their hard work. They were put in a very difficult situation. Quite frankly, they've been taking a beating in the press. And I think they've kind of got a black eye over this. What they did is really assess the situation. It's up to us to do the heavy lifting. So I just want to extend my appreciation again to Mr. Levin and Mr. Diamond and the rest of the task force. And I'll concede the floor.
Thanks, Alderman Morley. Alderman Leader. And I'm going to go back to...
Just to clarify, and I want to thank Alderman Hipskind because it's getting to a more concrete stage, And I want to make it simple, too, just like Alderman Morley. So what we are now saying is that instead of $24 per month increase, we are now saying approximately $20 or $21 per month increase, dividing 255 by 12. We are also now saying instead of $51 per month in total city property taxes, we are now talking about approximately $47 per month total in taxes. So we are asking the public, and of course we're going to pay this ourselves, and in some cases twice of that. We are asking the public to pay roughly $21 more per month, as you pointed out, Alderman, for police, fire, public works, and a total of $47 per month. That's it. Am I correct?
Yes.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Leader. I'll go to Alderman Pezza, and I'll go to Alderman Nybo.
Thank you, Mayor. Boy, I've got a lot to say, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. I just want to first thank all the residents who came this evening, took time out of their busy schedules. I know many people don't have the leisure or opportunity to attend these meetings, therefore they rely on us as their elected official to voice their concerns. And I'm proud to say that I received many phone calls, many emails. I was stopped in the grocery stores, in restaurants, at social events, which is perfectly fine with me. That's why I'm here. I'm happy to listen. And it was an overwhelming response. I did hear 2 people say that they would be willing to pay more. Most of the response was actually sounding quite desperate, pleading for us to please try and do more as a council, as a city, to take on more of our fair share of this burden. Some even stated that the difference between paying those extra taxes would mean they would no longer be able to go to our theater or eat at our restaurant or shop at our stores. And I think that's serious, and it's sincere, and it's real. Elmhurst is not exempt from what's going on in the country, in the state, in the world. There are many hardworking, intelligent people out there that pay up, and I do believe they've been paying their fair share. I don't think it's fair for us to say that they have not. We're looking at an 89% increase on the city portion, placing 2/3 of the financial burden on the taxpayers' backs. I say shame on me if I, for 1 minute, sit up here and pretend that I believe that's fair. I'm not up here, I don't look at myself as a politician. I'm not running for office right now. I am here to do what I believe I was elected to do. I am viewing this not as a political decision, but I'm dealing with this as looking at the public trust and as a public servant using your tax dollars. I take that seriously, and I believe we could do more. Mayor, you asked for suggestions, and I would like to say that Alderman Shea and I got together. I had many concerns. Alderman Shea got many. We met, we spoke, we decided to compile our list, and we will submit these. Most of those came from constituents. I think there's some excellent ideas here that I have not heard about, I've not learned about. I don't know if they've been looked at. I'm not aware that they've been looked at, but I think they're worthy of being looked at. And, you know, we keep hearing, well, that's only a few bucks, that's only a few bucks, that's only a few bucks. Well, guess what? A few bucks can add up to a lot of bucks. And the more bucks we save, the less the taxpayer is burdened with. There's actually a list of 30 items. I want to thank everyone that participated. Some were our own input, most were constituents. And, you know, just simple, anything as simple as the 132 cell phones we give out, up to big deals such as some no-bid contracts, possibly leasing some empty space we own. And there's some great ideas that I never thought of new ways to collect revenue that haven't been mentioned. So before we start pulling numbers out of the air, which I'm not sure how we can justify those numbers, I would like to say, A, is there a rush to vote on this evening? And if so, why? And B, if there's not a rush, I would like to take the time and give the taxpayer the benefit of the doubt for the suggestions they've made to look into some of these items, because I think they are worthy. And also, you know, I guess we're trying to compare ourselves to other communities, which, you know, it looks good when we do it up there, but I chose Elmhurst because I want to live in Elmhurst. I don't think we should compare ourselves to Aurora or Schaumburg. We're Elmhurst. We're unique. We're our own community. We operate the way we operate. I don't know what Schaumburg does or how they operate. I don't know what Naperville does or how they operate, and I really don't care what they do. I represent this community. I love this community. There's hardworking people here, and I think they would all agree that we need to look at this as Elmhurst and in their best interest. I don't think anyone, as someone else stated, would say, I don't want to pay taxes. I think we all know that's unrealistic. However, 2/3 of the burden, to me, is unfair to the taxpayer, and I also don't agree pulling numbers out of the sky right here, right now, to try and hurry up, rush this through, make a vote, and get this over with. This is serious business. This is something that's going to impact people heavily, and if we can take our time and make a well-educated, thorough decision, you know, God forbid we weren't home rule. God forbid we were subject to the tax cap. What would we be doing now? We would be sweating at the brow. People would be working by candlelight to try and come up with some ideas other than what I call, and a lot of people called, threats of taking away our police and our fire. I mean, let's be realistic. None of us want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. Somebody told me, you know, that would be like mom and dad sitting the kids down at the table and saying, Dad got half his pay cut, so guess what, kids? We're still going to go to Disney World, but Mom's not going to buy food anymore. We all know that would never happen. We would never want that to happen, and I would never allow that to happen. But I do feel we owe it to the hardworking people of this community to dig deeper and prove to them that everything possible has been looked into, dug into, and proven, because I still think with these 30 ideas we were given, there's some money here. I don't know how much it is, but I think it's worth looking at. So I would appreciate if somehow we could do that.
Thank you, Alderman Pezza. Before I go to Alderman Nybo, I just would like to state that, you know, what we did, in essence to what you just did, is kind of did a little task force on your own. We did this in full public disclosure. We took in applications. We took in resumes. We took in the best of the best. The pillars of this community, the Melville Walkers was sitting right in the middle aisle. That's who we took in. We didn't just go to a Jewel and drop 30 questions that we could, you know, hopefully arrive at $6 million. So I just want to point that out. A lot of hard work went into that. And a lot of the new aldermen, including the new mayor, went to those committee meetings. You were not at one of them. And that really is surprising to me, because most of us tried to get educated on what's going on with this community. And we attended those meetings because we wanted to become more educated on the financial process too. I think it's important that everybody knows that. So, you know, the object of tonight is to make a recommendation. The recommendation's on the floor. I'm going to go to Alderman Nybo, and I'm going to go to Alderman Wagner. But I wanted to point that out as
I'll defer to Alderman Wagner.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman Nybo. I just wanted to make one clarification. There were some comments tonight that we should run this city more like a business. If we run this like a business, we ought to know what our competition is doing and what is like. Our competition is Wheaton, is Downers Grove, is Glen Ellen, is Oak Brook. And if we don't know what they're doing and how they're doing it, shame on us. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman. Alderman Brown.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. We go to Alderman Nybo, and then I'll go to Alderman Brown. I apologize.
I can't get a word in edgewise. Alderman Pezza, are you implying there's something wrong with running for office?
Not at all.
I was a rhetorical question. Ironically, I made some notes to start off tonight with what I wanted to say, and the first note I wanted to mention is that we all know that people will say what they will say. We certainly heard that in public forum tonight. And as some of us have learned better than others, people will write what they will write about what we do here tonight. But I think we all owe it to the public and to each other to share our thoughts on this issue and why we're voting and deciding the way we're deciding. But a couple things that I wanted to respond to before I get into my thoughts on this issue. Some of the comments that I heard tonight and some of the comments that I read about in some of our local papers. First of all, about the task force, I think it's wonderful, and Mayor DeCiani should be commended for, when first confronting a very serious budget issue, not just going and discussing with staff what should be done, or not just going and discussing with colleagues what should be done, or not even just sitting down, with his own thoughts and thinking and coming to some decision as to what should be done. He went out and asked the community what should be done, and he assembled a group of people to give him some recommendations, to give some serious thought to this issue, and that's exactly what they did. You want to talk about courage? How about the risk of taking the most important issue in our city and turning it over to 24 individuals to say, in front of the entire city and all of us, give me some recommendations. I think you should be commended. I think the entire task force should be commended. And it's deplorable that people would sit out there and criticize those volunteers. Another thing I want to comment about tonight. Some gentleman came in here tonight and said that we're destroying the United States. Sometimes we do need to stand up for ourselves. All of us should be commended tonight for what we're doing. This is not fun. I can't imagine any one of us is enjoying being up here during this meeting tonight. I know I certainly am not, and it's certainly not just because I'm running for office. I'm not sure if that was meant to be a joke. Let me, I've got a unique vantage point to some of my colleagues on this issue, and that unique vantage point is for various reasons. I've spent the last 3 months, essentially 20 hours or more per week, just going out and meeting people, not just in Elmhurst, but in lots of different communities in the area here. And I want to share some of the experiences that I've had quickly, because I know we're getting late into the evening here. A lot of homes that I've gone to, there's nobody living there anymore. They're vacant. And sometimes there's even bank notices on the doors when I go to them because they're in foreclosure proceedings. And sometimes, I meet people, in the morning hours or in the afternoon on a weekday, and I learn through a conversation that the reason they're home is because they lost their job, whether it was a year ago or 8 months ago or 4 months ago. There's just a lot of people home, and they're at the door. And I've had a lot of conversations with people, and I think I've got a unique vantage point. I know how much people are struggling out there. I know how much people are hurting. And it would be with much, much reluctance for me to be in a position where I could support making their lives and all of our lives. I mean, even people who haven't lost their homes or haven't lost their jobs are going through difficult times. It would be difficult for me to make that decision to make their daily lives more difficult by increasing the cost of government. What I've clearly heard is that people want the costs of government to be contained. I think there's a way that we can do it. Alderman Leader talks about it's courageous to raise taxes. And I will say, it is not easy. And the people who are going to vote to support this levy, it's an extremely difficult decision. But just as equally difficult would be to take any of those 5% reduction recommendations from a couple budget cycles ago, or the 10% budget cut recommendations, and to implement those, and to make that decision to cut services that people have come to rely on and come to depend on. I think reasonable people can disagree on this issue. I think we can live without some of the services that we're currently getting in the city. I don't think that makes me a bad person. I don't think if you disagree with me, that makes you a bad person. I just think this is an issue where reasonable people can disagree. And I appreciate the fact that we're keeping our conversation here respectful. I appreciate the fact that people will disagree with me, and that's fine. It's just my opinion is that we can find ways to make additional cuts. They're not going to be easy, and they're certainly not going to be the kind of thing that you're going to enjoy walking down the grocery aisle about and having someone come up to you and say, what happened to this program, or why are we doing this? I think those decisions can be made. I think those cuts can be made. I don't think any of us knows exactly what those cuts would be. And in fact, our past practice has been to rely on city staff to actually implement and decide where they, in their professional judgment, can most easily and most effectively and most efficiently make those cuts. So Alderman Leader, I disagree with your conclusion that automatically we would have to resort to cuts in police and fire. I think there's a lot of different options that we could consider. We're not going through a budget process right now, but I wanted to state my opinion. I want to commend all of us for going through this process, but certainly Mayor DeCiani, who took a big risk by putting this issue in the hands of the public, as it should be. I think it was a great move, and I've heard the public, and I've heard a lot of them. So, thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Nybo. Alderman Brown, and then I'll go to Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to proceed my statements with, I had a sidebar conversation with Director Marilyn Gaston in regards to my previous question, because I still wasn't set straight, and she set me on the right path. The debt service, or the debt levy, is an additional $2.3 million approximately, which will be, if I understand Alderman Hipkins' proposal, motion to amend, that is, or motion in general, would be on top of the $14,901,717. The reason why I'm asking for this clarification, because that discussion was happening when I was having the sidebar. In going along with that, the mention was I want a number that goes with a $255 per month household increase. So if that's the case, are you making the statement, sorry, to direct it to the chair, is the actual motion to remove the statement about the debt levy service, or is that the debt levy service on top of the $14,901,717?
I'll defer that to Alderman Hipskin, but I believe it's going to be the same. It's just we're changing the number. Is that correct, Alderman Hipskin?
Well, yes, the number, the 255, is not abating, am I correct? Not abating the bonds. Actually, my motion is for $14,901,717 to be levied. That is my motion. That it does not preclude us from looking at anybody's 30 suggestions on how we can save money. It does not lock us in to abating or not abating. It does not lock us into a suggestion that Alderman Leader may have. It does not lock us into actually spending the money. It does not lock us into not cutting the budget further. It does not lock us into anything. It is the tax levy in that amount. And we needed to, start a discussion and then have a point of where that discussion needs to go. I'm not saying what we have to do within the money. So it's really, I hear your question, but it's not really relevant to this motion and the tax levy. So we can go ahead and levy this money. We don't have to spend it. I'd love to find $6 million of cuts that we come up with. I don't know, in 5 years of going through this budget cycle, I've seen us cut quite a bit, and now it's time to pay the piper. And the random number of $255 per household, suggested random number is actually, it's a 6-month, 1 year, 2.5 years, 5-year, 10-year average with, it's an algorithm that takes all those into account, that takes into account CPI, home values, the increase of home values, the tax rates, both local and national, the S&P return over a 10-year, 5-year, 2.5-year, 1-year, 6-month return, in addition to the interest rates on LIBOR all the way up to 10-year. I tried to go 30-year because that would have been relevant data, but I really didn't have that. So it's not a number I pulled out of the air.
With that, real quick, Alderman Hipskin is the chair of finance, so that's why everybody out there understands the motion was made by him with a lot of backup, but I'll defer to Alderman Brown. They'll do a follow-up. Go ahead.
Thank you. My follow-up actually was going to be have some explanation on where the number was generated from. With that said, you threw a lot of acronyms and everything else out there, and I don't know if I absorbed it all. I agree with Alderman Pez's statements earlier, and I don't know if there's a need to really make this motion to go forward. I'm not in support of going forward with it tonight. And looking at our schedule, I think we're fine with not going forward. We have plenty of time. If I may request, I don't know, without the words put on paper, if I would actually support that or not, so I would like to request if that could actually be distributed, that explanation be distributed to the full city council to back up the current motion.
Okay. Very good. Alderman Healy, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd first like to start with a question, and City Manager Borchard, could you go back to the slide you were on before going to that one, the one that showed the executive summary of the Citizens Task Force? Thank you. Before I make my comments, I do want to ask a question, because now I'm a little fuzzy. The task force originally recommended an increase in property taxes of just over $4 million, $4,068,000. Of that amount, $2.182 million was not abating. If I've heard the conversation correctly tonight, we're going to raise approximately $4 million in extra taxes and then not abate. Is that correct?
That includes the not doing the bond abatement.
So in effect, it's not, we're not going to raise taxes if we raise taxes and then not abate. If we raise the taxes per Alderman Hipskin's motion, we will abate.
Yes, there will be an abatement on the previous bond issues that are paid for from utility fund and parking fund.
Okay, so when the Citizens Task Force came in and said $4 million, $4,068,000 in new revenue, which included
not abating those portions of previous bond issues that are paid for by the general fund, so the general fund would actually have the benefit of those taxes.
But the net effect is $4,068,000. That's per the Citizens Task Force. Right. Now the city staff, or the wall recommendation, if you will, was $4.6 million.
Correct.
And that also included that same 2.182.
Correct.
Okay. So now Alderman Hipskin's motion has come down off of that 4.6 down to roughly 4 million. Roughly. Yeah. Because it's about 600,000 in, correct?
You're real close.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, within, 5,000. The big thing I want to make sure I am crystal clear on, because I am not anymore, I thought I was walking up, is that if Alderman Hipskin's motion passes, it'll be roughly $4 million in new revenue, which includes not abating 2.182 million.
Yeah, if I may?
Yes, Alderman City Manager Borchard? Absolutely.
The proposed motion that would be $255 on the average home, the revenue sources would be bond abatement, $2.182 million.
I thought it was 2.3. No, 2.3. 2.3.
Now 2.3?
Yes.
And then the rate increase would be a number that would, when added to the 2.3, add up to 3.995.
Okay, so that's what was my understanding walking in here tonight. It got a little cloudy there because Alderman Bram's question, if I may, seemed to be we're going to abate it, or excuse me, we're going to raise taxes, and then we still have the non-abatement on top of that, and that is not the case. Correct?
Well, we're going to say it again. We don't abate, then those taxes, that bond abatement doesn't occur, so there will be then a tax of 2.182 that's now 2.3.
Right. But that's built in already. That's already part of Alderman Hipskin's motion.
That's correct.
Yes.
I would,
Okay.
That is?
Well,
Marilyn, let Marilyn say it. No, it's not.
Yes, but it's part of the 250.
Alderman Hipskin's motion for the approximately $14 million, $14,900,000, does not include the amounts that not to be abated.
What?
Not to be more confusing, but the average $255 per home increase does. If you're telling me that your goal is $255 per home, Tom and I will take that number and work backwards to come up with what the levy number needs to be, taking into account that that levy number plus the amount not to be abated will give me $255 per home. So the number that Alderman Hipskin is talking about at the $14,900,000 does not include the amounts not to be abated. Does that, am I making sense?
you are making perfect sense. And so then, the amount I'm prepared to support is the $255 average for a $403,000 home.
Yes, to get to that 255, you need both of those components.
Correct.
You need that 14,900,000 and that 2.3 million
16.2.
debt service.
Okay.
very good clarification. Alderman Leader?
Going back to Alderman Pezza's remarks and Alderman Nybo, my friend Alderman Pezza and my friend Alderman Nybo, I will stand by what I originally said. I may be wrong, but that's my reading of the budget. As I originally said, that was based on the fact that we did not raise taxes, that we had to come up with a figure of 6 to 7 million. Given that we had cut non-essential funds 4 million, given that we had slashed, that left us 85% of the budget, which was police, fire, and public works. Given that we've axed public works, that left only 50% of the budget. Now, maybe my figures were too high or too low. I don't know. But I tell you in all sincerity, I believe that if we have to come up with 6 to 7 million, we will have to cut police and fire. Now, I also say this, I was pleased by your remarks, Alderman Pezza, because you said it's not going to happen. We're not going to cut police and fire. And clearly, Alderman Nybo, if I understood you, you will not stand for cuts in police and fire. And that's all I'm really saying, that whatever we do up here, I don't want to cut one policeman or one fireman. And I'm delighted, though we may quibble about percentages, but it's clear from me that you stand with me that whatever we do, whatever, if I have to go halfway to you or you have to go halfway to me, we're not going to cut police and fire because that would be a disaster for our community. And if you talk about foreclosures, you're going to have a heck of a lot more because nobody's going to want to come in here and buy. But I'm glad we're closing the gap, and I want to keep it on a very pleasant level because you're both friends of mine. Thank you.
I will always go halfway to you, Alderman.
1 second, Chris. Thank you, Alderman Leader. I'm going to go to Alderman Rose, and I'm going to go back to Alderman Healy. But wanted to mention that Alderman Rose recommended, which we actually went through the Finance Committee last week, about the rebate. We do know people are out of work, and I'm going to let Alderman Rose elaborate on that. Alderman Rose. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to bring that up, but I also want to keep us on task. There's some discussion about, there's no hurry about this. I just want a clarification. There is some urgency about this in law, is there not? That we really need to pass this. We have 20 days before, so that's before December 4th or 5th, or else we'll be back here on 31st of December. We'll all be back here, is that correct? Voting on this?
You'd be too late at December 31st. You have to do it by the last Tuesday in December. I mean, that is
Last
the
Tuesday in December.
That has to be done. It has to be filed with the county by
So
that
that
date.
gives us December 27th. So we could be here on December 27th, is that correct?
Before that, because on that date, we have to actually file it with the county, so.
Oh, December 26th.
The
we could be
26th.
here. Okay, so I say that to say there is an urgency. I understand the need for careful discussion, but I will say that at some point, we got to lay it on the line and say, are we going to do this, or what are we going to do at this point? So
Budget cut.
They're not kidding.
I stayed too long at the fair. What is this?
Budget cut.
Sign from God.
So I just want to keep us on task. There is a reason for us to move forward about this and do this, so I think we should. But I do want to say this. There's been a lot of discussion about. I'll wait. Coming back?
It was left alone too long. So it's turned itself on.
Thank you. There has been a lot of discussion about people not understanding that people are hurting, people are unemployed. Trust me, anyone, you have to be alive to understand that there's significant difficulty in this, in the nation at this point, which is why I've talked about a tax rebate. I am dead serious about that. I think that we need to do that based on income. Why is a property tax rebate so important? Property tax rebate is important because any tax increase will affect the following folks the most. Young families who may have been, first hired, last hired, first fired. Those folks are going to be more affected. People like myself who have lived in this community for 39 years, where our homes have gone up in value, our income may not have. Those kinds of things, and those people who have been unemployed. We heard from 2 people. Trust me, there's more than 2 people who are here. So I have proposed, based on income, what happens to people when they're unemployed in this community is they start going to their savings first. That's the first thing they do, so that we can equitably do that. We already provide tax rebates in terms of municipal taxes, so we can surely do it on a property tax basis. So I urge you to support that. In fact, I don't know that I can support, I want to keep us on task. I think we need to pass this motion at this point. We will have a real whack at this at our meeting on December 4th. At that point, I will tell you, before I vote for this, if I vote for it at all, I need to see some seriousness about property tax rebate. And this is not a threat. This is simply where I am with this. I'm not doing anything unless there's some credence given to folks in this community that we heard about tonight who are unemployed, these are people who have lived here for years, and another $500-600 is not going to help these people stay in this community. So I'm dead serious about us really looking at a property tax rebate. So I think there is some urgency at this point in doing this. I will tell you, I'm a little pessimistic about our individual abilities to cut. I appreciate what Alderman Pezza has done, which is get folks in the community to say you could cut this or that. I'm reminded of a discussion we had a year ago when we could not even agree that we were going to cut service to block parties. People scream, oh my gosh, we can't do that. So I guess you have to forgive me if I'm going to be pessimistic about our ability to go through this line by line and say, oh sure, I'll take this. We actually have we did cut trees. The city's contribution to trees. I will tell you, I've had people here in the audience today say that somehow I was irresponsible in my years here on this council. I would disagree with that. I will just tell you this, I am not wise like Solomon. I am not going to be willing, I can't cut the baby and tell you which stuff should be cut or not. I know in my years on this council says when we start to get individual items, that every constituency, it's everyone, my precious thing is your thing that you think should be cut. The thing that I think should be cut is probably the thing that's important to you, so that I think that the city staff, it's really important for us to have them give us some recommendations for this. I think that's absolutely significant. For us to go piece by piece to it is a bad idea. For example, we have already cut out someone who does business recruitment in this community. I thought that was a bad idea. Okay? I thought it was a very bad idea. When people want to know what have we cut so far, I appreciate the city manager putting up here what we have cut. We've cut street sweeping. I will tell you, I'll get calls from people, how come my street isn't being swept? We have cut street maintenance. I was at a block party this summer. When is my street going to get paved? Probably not this year. We've cut sidewalk repair. We've cut parkway trees. We've cut community grants to the symphony, to the art museum. We've cut business recruitment. We've cut things I know that's near and dear to the chamber. Our membership in DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau. We've cut these things. We've reduced the number of building inspections we're doing in town. It's a variety of things that we already have cut. So I do not trust our ability to cut individually in these things. I'm going to rely on what the city staff has said. I also think that I want to say just two last points. This notion of raising taxes by 80%, I got to tell you, it makes me laugh as a statistician. It's very simple. 80% of a dollar is 80 cents. 80% of $100,000 is a whole lot more. So when we're talking about small amounts of money, to say it's 80% is akin to me to saying the sky is falling. That's like Chicken Little. 80%, 80%. I have to say I think that's disingenuous. We have to talk about the dollar amounts. It's to our favor. If you don't want taxes, it's to your favor to say 80% isn't that terrible. If you do want a tax increase, it's to your advantage to say it's only $250. So I think let's be a little realistic with that. I also would like to put this in perspective. I came to this community 40 years ago. I bought my house for $16,000, same house I happen to live in. This house, someone said, how many do you have a house that's more than $400,000? Mine isn't that anymore. However, my income, I don't mind sharing with you, 40 years ago was a whopping $8,000 a year. Okay. So I would suggest to everybody that your housing values have gone up, your income has gone up. For those whose income has not gone up, I believe that we need to really think about those people in our community and think about a property tax rebate. It's the fair thing to do, it's the right thing to do, and it's the thing to do. I cannot imagine doing it without that. So I thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize, the discussion on the levy and the 255, that was just my question. Now I've got some comments I'd like to make. And I intentionally tried to wait till later in the discussion for a couple reasons. One, I'm a newbie on the council. I'm going through this process for the first time. I wanted to see how it would go, but I also figured that a lot of what I would say would be said previously and would spare me some time. So, and of course, fortunately, that's been done. I'm going to limit my comments to three basic areas: the history, the process, and then the levy. And the history I'll be brief on. I think we all know how we got here. And I think for the most part, the public knows how we got here: declining sales tax revenues and structural deficits. We're not going to be able to do anything about the sales tax revenue anytime soon. I think we all pretty much agree that it's going to continue to decline or be in bad shape. The structural deficit, though, is something that I hope that we do something about this year, and we do not continue that practice of running structural deficits. If you look at this year's budget, it was a $700,000 fund balance drawdown to balance the budget. I would, just speaking for myself as a new alderman, I would not oppose, or I would not favor that again for next year's budget. Now to the process. This is the first time through it, so I think I have a unique perspective, but I also think it probably puts me in a position to ask some potentially dumb questions, but I'm okay with that. This process of levy then budget, I think, is structurally flawed.
Yes.
I think when times are good or levies aren't going up by much, we can get away with it. But when you're asking for the kind of increase that we're asking for and not being able to tell the residents specifically what would be cut, we ourselves don't know specifically what can be cut. Most of my discussions over the last couple weeks have centered around maybe this, maybe that, here's what I would have cut from this year's budget next year. I would challenge the council, again, coming from the new guy perspective, that does a calendar fiscal make sense, and does it make sense to budget and then levy? Because then we can specifically tell ourselves what we're in favor of cutting and not cutting, but more importantly, we can tell the residents, if we don't do this, here is what you lose. Not this nebulous cuts of what have you. But I understand that's the process now, and we're doing the best of it. As for the specific levy, core and critical. How many times have we heard that phrase mentioned by ourselves, by city staff, or by the residents? I'm willing to bet there are 15 people on this dais. I'm willing to bet each one of us has a slightly different definition of core and critical. With that in mind, I know what I think is core and critical. I've gone through the budget extensively. I know what I would have reduced the wall by to get there. But I am 100% confident, and we've heard it from several aldermen, and I certainly respect the opinion that they think that there's $6 million in cuts out there. I'm not going to say no, there's not. I'm going to say that in my opinion, there's not. The number $6 million, it's potentially wrong. I mean, based on the sales tax numbers we saw today, that $6 million deficit quite possibly could be $7 million by the time we do the budget. And that doesn't count for the putting cash back into the working fund. So it's very possible we're going to face a $7 million deficit come budget time. And then if we want to add any cash back in, that's on top of it. With that in mind, as I've said, I've had many discussions with residents. I've had many discussions with city staff. I've had several discussions with some fellow aldermen. I was not in favor of the wall. I was very happy when Alderman Hipskin brought that amount down by $600,000. Based on what I saw in the budget, and based on what staff has already identified, we're going to need to cut on top of that anyhow. If we levy, say, $4 million in incremental taxes, there is still $2 to $3 million of cuts we've got to make. Based on that, I was prepared to support $500,000 to $700,000 reduction in the levy. Alderman Hipskin's motion does that. I think I'm pretty clear on the abatements, and as long as I'm clear on it, I think I am. I am going to support Alderman Hipskin's motion, but I completely respect those that say they won't because they think it can be cut. We'll have time to prove that in I guess December is when we start that fun little process. But as far as where I am, that's where I am, so I will support the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Healy. Anybody else? Alderman Pezza? And I think I'm going to call the question, or call the motion, or call the roll, unless there's other discussion after Alderman Pezza.
Thank you.
No problem.
Just quick, thank you, Alderman Healy. I agree with much of what you said, especially about that flip-flop in my eyes. I'm also new, but I think that made a lot of sense to me. That's what I've been thinking is, gosh, this seems like it's almost backward the way this works, but that's what we're faced with. So thank you for bringing that up. And also, I don't think I heard anyone say that we think anybody could find $6 million. If you do, let me know where it's at, because I'd love one of those trees in my backyard. I mean, we know that's impossible. It's not going to happen. We're not going to find $6 million. I agree. I just think to prove to the taxpayer, if we can dig a little deeper, find a little more, people would feel more comfortable and be a little happier about it. And also, as far as not appearing at the task force meetings, I would just like to say that this is the task force I was elected to. And I'm here, and I'm participating, and I'm serious about it. So this is the task force I was elected to participate in, so this is what I'm trying to do. I'm doing my best, and I'm working to represent the people. So,
thank you, Alderman. Thank you. Alderman Mulliner, I'll go to Alderman Hipskin.
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of very basic comments. Alderman Leader started this off by saying the need for all of the different things that we have, and you know, I go back and whenever I think about what we have to do with the budget, and none of us want to raise taxes, there's no question about that. I keep thinking about the essential services of the city, safety, and basically providing water and streets and the basic the basic necessities. And those are the types of things that I look at. And I think that we've got a pretty good compromise here on this, on the levy. We're certainly going to go through the budget and try to find more cuts and try to make as many cuts as we possibly can. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we keep what we consider as a group to be those essential services. And Alderman Pez, I agree with you. We are the task force. The 15 of us sitting up here, we have the final say. I think they've done a terrific job of providing us with the information and some information to help us to understand and to see things a different way. And I think that was a tremendous thing. So I give the mayor a lot of credit for putting that group together. But when the buck stops, it stops with us, and we have to make this tough decision. And yes, it is a backwards system. We agree. The state has not helped us with that, but this is what we're stuck with, and we have to deal with it. So we work within the parameters that we're given, and we're going to make it work. And so we do what we have to.
Thanks, Alderman Alderman Mulliner. I'll go to Alderman Gutenkopf, and I'll go back to Alderman Hipskin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Director, Marilyn Gaston, has provided me with a number that reflects a split in cost that's closer to the city cutting half and the taxpayers paying half rather than the one-third, two-third cut. And that number is about $900,000 lower than Alderman Hipskin's number. It comes to $14,005,968. So I'd like to amend Alderman Hipskin's motion to reflect that figure. So the new motion would be that, and I'll repeat that number, it's $14,005,968.
A second.
Okay, we have a second by Alderman Shea on the floor on that. Do we have any discussion on the amended motion by Alderman Gutenkopf to lower the levy from roughly 14,901 to 14?
Roughly 14,005,000.
Okay, gotcha.
14,901 to 14.
We're going from 14,901 to roughly 14, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Leader.
I would defer to Alderman Hipskin, who is our expert on finance. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not going to support it. I'm going to support the motion that I've spent hours, days, sweat and toil on at $14,901,000. So, it's, just a difference of opinion.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, I'd ask,
I just want to kind of understand the math here. So if we're going back to the recommended expense reductions from the Finance Task Force, if that was 2.2, and you add in your 9, right, your 900,000 and another $1 million there, we're up over, what is that, over $4 million. We said we couldn't find 6. Are we going to be able to find 4?
Right.
So just to kind of put that into perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else for discussion? This is to lower the levy per Alderman Gutenkopf's recommendation to about half the cuts, roughly around $3 million in cuts, versus Alderman Hipskin's suggestion was to go about $2 million in cuts with about a $4 million increase in the levy. So, hearing no other discussion, ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pardon me? This is on the amendment, sorry.
This
is on the amendment to decrease to Alderman Hipskin's motion.
All right, I'll start again. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Leader.
Nay.
Rose.
No.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
No.
York.
Nay.
Nybo.
No.
Healy.
No.
Morley.
No.
Kennedy.
No.
Mulliner.
No.
Wagner.
No.
4 ayes, 10 nays.
4 ayes, 10 nays. That motion to amend fails. And now we'll go to the original motion, and I would ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Pezza.
No.
Shea.
No.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Nybo.
No.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
9 ayes, 5 nays.
9 ayes, 5 nays. That motion passes. We will now go on to item number, I believe, trying to see, did we already approve 9?
No, we didn't do.
We need to approve item 9, which is an ordinance. I would ask Clerk Spencer to, we need to make a motion to suspend rules on this because this is something that we had a report on that we approved already today. I ask Alderman Rose for a motion. Alderman Wagner seconds. Discussion on, or excuse me, I would ask Alderman, or City Clerk Spencer to read the ordinance, please.
An ordinance amending Section 36.09 entitled Classification of Licenses, Section 36.10 entitled Terms, Fees, and Section 36.11 entitled Limitation on Number of Licenses of Article 2 entitled Retail Licenses of Chapter 36 entitled Liquor of the Municipal Code of Ordinances of the City of Elmhurst, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois.
Alrighty, and I asked for my motion and my second prior, so I'm a little backwards tonight. I apologize about that, but discussion on this particular ordinance. Anybody?
We have to vote on this
Wait,
suspension of the
you
rules.
have to...
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. This was on the suspension of the rules, so we could vote on the ordinance. Now I'd ask for a voice vote on this suspension of rules. All in favor of suspending the rules to vote on the ordinance? Please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Now I'd ask for a motion and a second, please. Motion by Alderman Wagner, second by Alderman Morley. And discussion? All righty. Hearing none, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Wagner.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, and the ordinance passes unanimously. On to other business, item 10. I know Alderman Mulliner had something on other business regarding City and Park Committee. Alderman Mulliner, would you like to bring that up?
We have to do the agenda item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
New agenda.
Apologize. You know what? I didn't get a copy of the new one. Number 10. There we go. Here we go. All right, item number 10. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the recommendation under other business. Or just, actually, I'll just bring this up. For, item A, First Street Parking Deck and Open Space, Alderman Pez and Alderman Gutenkopf. I'd refer to this to City Manager Borchert.
This is a referral that the item be forwarded to the Public Works and Buildings Committee.
All righty. Very good.
You need a motion.
Any, do we need to vote on this, or is there any discussion? I'd ask for a motion and a second, please. Alderman, pardon me?
Point of order, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I know sometimes when aldermen refer stuff, they'll leave it to city manager to direct it to the proper committee, and sometimes they'll point it to the proper committee. So either from the people making the recommendation or from city manager, I'd just like clarification why this is going to Public Works versus maybe zoning.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
All righty. Alderman Pezzo would like to, or Gutenkopf would like to elaborate on that?
Or city manager. I
Or
don't
City
care.
Manager Borchert, I'm sorry.
Frequently there are many overlapping issues on a study item. I understand your point, Alderman Morley, that it could be a development issue. Because the issue was first and foremost a use of the city right-of-way for a public open space, Public Works and Buildings Committee has been studying the item as it relates to the adjacent private property owned by the city and the development of that parking deck. The right-of-way is, in the city's development plans, the open space, public park, transition piece. And I think the Public Works and Buildings Committee therefore has an understanding of need of the city for the use in a separation of the commercial to the residential property and as a small suburban park area, and maybe best positioned to make a recommendation to the overall council as to its intended long-term use. That's where I would think it's first a Public Works and Buildings Committee issue, but then it's certainly one for the full city council.
Thanks, City Manager Borcher. Thank you, Alderman Morley. This is just a referral, so no need to vote on this, correct, City Attorney Storino? Okay. And then other business, I'll go refer to Alderman Mulliner and the City Park Committee.
I think this is probably more of a report than anything, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that Alderman Kennedy and City Manager Borchard and I met with representatives from the Park District a week ago, and we'll be meeting again. Looks like we're going to plan on going every other month for a while, and we've begun some discussions on, so we can see what the two groups have been doing together, and there's quite a bit that's already been done together, and we're going to be putting together some documents. The staff is putting together documents to show that so that people have that information up front, and then there'll be additional things that we'll continue to work more on, but at least initially we'll get some information out there to show where there's already been cooperation, and there's been some significant cooperation, but you don't really see it until you really look at the documents. So we're looking at ways to put some of that information out, like on all the websites and things like that, to get that information in people's hands, at least initially. Plus, there's going to be a number of other things that we'll begin to address after we get through that.
Thank you, Alderman Mulliner, and this is a great intergovernmental committee, which I think we're all really, keen on. How we can save money together, how we can work together. That's what it's all about. Is it's all $1? So how can we maximize that? So I appreciate Alderman Mulliner and also Alderman Kennedy, who'd like to probably say a few words.
Certainly, as we've looked at this, we're trying to understand where each of the bodies is coming from, and one of the things we're going to look at is how can we save money collectively. Things like we both have forestry departments, can we do things together? We both have IT departments, can we do things together? How we handle human resources training, all these things, we got to look for commonalities and figure out ways. Ultimately, we can provide the residents of Elmhurst a better experience, hopefully at a lower cost and in a much better situation altogether. But we're just now feeling our way through this process, getting to know each other and go from there.
Very good. Thanks, Alderman Kennedy. Alderman Hipskin.
Just a quick comment. That's exciting. I mean, that where you're at today, a few years ago, it's a big leap, and so I think it's great.
Very good. Very good. We talked about working with schools and parks and making sure we all get along and play nice in the sandbox and work together, save money, bottom line, and deliver. And that's what we're all about here. Alderman Morley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. One thing I'd like to mention is just this last Saturday, Mike Laspiza, who's an Elmhurst resident, runs a local charity, Kickoff for Kids. He's been doing it for a couple of years now, and he held his annual fundraiser that many of us actually attended at River Forest this weekend, and I'm pleased to announce that they raised over $50,000, and I think that's just terrific, and it kind of brings us back to, we've had a very spirited discussion tonight. Some of us agreed, some of us disagreed, but I'm happy to say that there was people from both sides of the votes at the event this weekend, and I just want to thank everyone who attended, gave generously of their time and of their money, and also an extra special thanks to Mike Laspiza, who does a lot of this stuff under the radar and doesn't get recognition.
That's a great acknowledgement. Mike's a great guy, really passionate, that whole crew do a great job. Also, in light of that as well, I think kudos to the museum group for a very successful Rockin' the Schoolhouse event, which many of us were at as well. It was, I think, 300-400 people attended, well attended. The auction was incredible. A lot of nice things were auctioned off. We raised a lot of money. I think we kind of got a taste of the community support for the museum, and having the schoolhouse get approved. Mayor Soto from Bensonville actually came to the event and sat with us. Being able to work together with even other governmental municipalities that are right next to us. I think it's a great show of unity and bringing people together for a common cause. And that will be finished in I believe the fall now. So I appreciate everybody that attended the Rockin' the Schoolhouse event. I thought it was very nice event. Anybody else for announcement? Alderman Pezza.
Speaking of great events, there's still time to purchase tickets for the Wilder Gala. It's December 5th. It's a wonderful event. Support, as we said, Park District, and it's a beautiful evening, so still time to get your tickets.
What's the date on that?
December 5th.
December 5th. Okay, very good. We should show our support as a city and come out. Aldermen, clerk, treasurer, we'll all hopefully we'll see everybody out there. So, any announcements other than this? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley, Alderman Wagner, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.